Hello, chat. How are you all doing today? Why is that not updated? Okay, whatever. I'm gonna chat with you guys for a minute before we really start reading. So yeah, how are y'all doing today? Random drawings. But we're gonna do a chill stream today. Where I read another book. We're gonna read the Dunwich horror. Oh, I need to do that. Hold on. Poopy doodles. Hold on just a second. I like to do this for YouTube purposes. I can spell, don't worry, chat, it's fine. But how y'all doing? Hope y'all are doing well today. We're just gonna do a bit of weeding. I'm gonna weed a little bit. I forgot what I chose last time. That'll work. I like that. Okay. That is extremely way too big. Just gonna... Yeah, just have that just directly across the screen. Just right there. You know, chat. It's fine. That is not what we want. Up over here in the corner. There we go. There we go. So that way when you guys come in, you guys can see what story that we're reading over that way. I really need to flip this around. So yeah. You know, this is fine. This is what we're doing today. Because we reached 5 subs. So, we're gonna do reading, and so I don't know if we're gonna read another story after this one. This one is extremely long. I don't want to put that one on. So this one's extremely long. It's a good 40 pages or so. And, yeah. So, we'll see. We'll see how long this takes us. Depending, we may switch over to kindergarten and play that for a little bit. I can pop over and do that. I don't think it would take too much. It would just be moving my camera. Would be the hellacious part of it. Okay, so everybody get comfy and cozy, and we're gonna start reading. I gotta get my banky. It's cold up in here. It's like 80 degrees outside, and I keep my room like 40 degrees because it's so damn hot outside. And, but I've been, like, going outside, and I've been, like, walking and stuff like that to where I'm, like, slowly trying to readjust to, like, you know, outside world. Yeah, I only go in my backyard. Let me explain that to you now. I go in my backyard, I sit there, and I play with my dog for, like, 15-20 minutes. And then I come back inside and walk on my treadmill. So, I don't leave my house. I don't like it. People in the outside world are gross. Alright, so I'm gonna talk for one more minute, and then we're gonna start weeding, chat. We're gonna weed. So, there's a lot in this book. I didn't realize how long some of these were. Like, they start to progressively get longer. Because after this one, we'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, So we'll be almost halfway done. So the next, at least 2 to 3. Okay, so the Shadow Out of Time is pretty short. But the rest of them are about 100 pages long, and that's freaking way too long. So we'll see. We'll just play it by ear today and see how tired I get after reading this particular story. So, hold on just a second. Okay. So, the Dunwich Horror. Gorgons. Oh wait. Oof, that is way too loud. I was gonna do a test and I forgot to do a test, so hold on just a second. I'm a putz today, I'm sorry. Okay, I don't think it's that loud. Okay, you're just gonna have to deal with a, I don't know how loud it is, so that's my bad. We're just gonna have to deal with the loudness until someone will comment on it, because I can't check it. There's like not enough of a delay today, so the one time there's not a delay, but we'll have it about there. I think there should be okay. So hopefully it's not too loud or anything. I don't think it would be though. Okay, so let's get reading. The Dunwich Horror. Gorgons and hydras and chimeras. Dire stories of... Oh my god, I already came to a word that I don't know. Solano. And the harpies may reproduce themselves in the brain of superstition, but they were there before. There's transcripts, types, the archetypes, and are in us and eternal. How should the recital of that which we know in a waking sense to be false come to affect us all? Is it that we naturally conceive terror from such objects, considered in their capacity of being able to inflict upon us bodily injury? Or at least of all? These terrors are of older standing. They date beyond body, or without the body. They would never have been in the same. That's the kind of fear here treated is purely spiritual, that it is strong in proportion, as it is objectless. I can read today, Chad, I swear. This is, predominates in the period of our sinless infancy. Our difficulties, the solution of which might afford some probable insight into our anti-mundane condition, and a peep at least into the shadowland of pre-existence. Charles Lamb, Witches and Other Night Fears. That was a quote, by the way, Chad. So, Chapter 1. When a traveler in north-central Massachusetts takes the wrong fork at the junction of the Owlsbury Pike, just beyond Dean's Corner, he comes upon a lonely and curious country. The ground gets higher, and the bordered stone walls press closer and closer against the ruts of the dusty, curving road. The trees of the frequent forest belt seem too large, and the wild weeds, brambles, and grasses attain a luxurious not often found in settled regions. At the same time, the planted fields appear singularly few and barren, while the sparsely scattered houses wear a surprisingly uniform aspect of age, squalor, and dilapidation. Got it. Without knowing why, one hesitates to ask directions from the gnarled, solitary figures spied now and then on crumbling doorsteps or on the sloping rock-strewn meadows. Those figures are so silent and furtive that one feels somehow confronted by forbidden things. excuse me, with which it would be better to have nothing to do. When a rise in the road brings the mountains in view above the deep woods, the feeling of strange uneasiness is increased. The summits are too rounded and symmetrical to give a sense of comfort and naturalness, and sometimes the sky silhouettes with special clearness the circles of tall stone pillars with which most of them are crowned. Gorges and ravines, I was going to read that differently, of problematical depth intersect the way, and the crude wooden bridges always seem of dubious safety. When the road dips again, there are stretches of marshland that one instinctively dislikes, and indeed almost fears at evening when unseen. That's how you spell whippoorwills? Alright. Whippoorwills chatter, and the fireflies come out in abnormal profusion to dance to the ruckus, creepily insistent rhythms of stridently piping bullfrogs. The thin, shining line of the upper reaches as an oddly serpent-like suggestion as it winds close to the feet of the hills among which it rises. As the hills draw nearer, one heeds their wooded sides more than their stone-crowned tops. Those sides loom up so darkly that one wishes they would keep their distance. But there's no road by which to escape them. Across a covered bridge, one sees a small village huddled between the stream and the vertical slope of Round Mountain, and wonders as the cluster of rotting gambrel roofs, bespeaking an earlier architectural period than that of the neighboring region. It is not reassuring to see, on a closer glance, than most of the houses are deserted and falling to ruin, that the broken steepled church now harbors the once slovenly mercantile establishment of the hamlet. One dreads to trust the tunnel of the bridge, yet there is no way to avoid it. Once across, it is hard to prevent the impression of a faint malign odor about the village street as of the mass mold and decay of centuries. It is always a relief to get clear of the place and to follow the narrow road around the base of the hills and across the level country beyond till it rejoins the Aylesbury Pike. Afterward, one sometimes learns that the one has been through Dunwich. I gotta get some water. Whew. That was the most descriptive way of, like, explaining a city I've ever heard. Ugh. There we go. Let's wet the whistle. Outsiders visit Dunwich as seldom as possible, and since a certain season of horror, all the signboards pointing to it has been taken down. The scenery, judged by its ordinary aesthetic canon, is more than commonly beautiful, yet there's no influx of artists or summer tourists. 2 centuries ago, when talk of witch blood, Satan worship, and strange forest presence was not laughed at, it was the custom to give reasons for avoiding the locality. In our sensible age, since the Dunwich Horror of 1928 was hushed up by those who had the towns and the world's welfare at heart, people shun it without knowing exactly why. Perhaps one reason, though, it cannot apply to uninformed strangers, is that the natives are now repellently decadent, having gone far along that path of retrogression so commonly in many New England backwaters. They have come to form a colony by themselves, with the well-defined mental and physical stigma of degeneracy and inbreeding. Well, we're literally starting this story off with a bang, chat. Literally. The average of their intelligence is woefully low, whilst their canals reek of overt viciousness and of half-hidden murders, incests, and deeds of almost unnameable violence and perversity. What the fuck? The old gentry, representing the 2 or 3 families which came from Salem in 1692, have kept somewhat above the general level of decay, though many branches are sunk into the sordid populace so deeply that only their names remain as key to the origin they disgrace. Some of the, I don't know how to say that, and bishops will still send their eldest sons to Harvard in Miskatonic, though those sons have seldom returned to the moldering roofs under which they had their ancestors were born. No one, even those who have the facts concerning the recent horror, can say just what is the matter with Dunwich, though old legends speak of unhallowed rites and concaves of the Indians, amidst which they called forbidden shapes of shadows out of the great rounded hills, and made wild prayers that were answered by loud crackings and rumblings from the ground below. In 1747, the Reverend Hoadley, newly came to the Congregational Church at Dunwich Village, preached a memorable sermon on the close presence of Satan and his imps, in which he said, oh, this is going to be good, chat. It must be allowed that these blasphemies of an infernal train of demons and matters of too common knowledge to be denied. The cursed voices of Azazel? Buzzreel? Of, I don't know how to say any of these. Beelzebub and Belial? I'm reading these phonetically. I can't read. It's fine. Being heard now from underground by above a score of credible witnesses now living. I myself did not more than a fortnight ago catch a very plain discourse of evil powers in the hills behind my house, wherein there was a rattling, a rolling, growing, screeching, and hissing, such as no things of this earth could raise up, and which must needs have come from those caves that only black magic can discover, and only the devil unlock? I don't know how they spell back then. Mr. Hoadley disappeared soon after delivering this sermon, but the text, printed in Springfield, is still extant. Noises in the hills continue to be reported from year to year, and still form a puzzle to geologists and physiographers. Other traditions tell of a foul odor near the hill crowning circles of stone pillars, and of rushing airy presences to be heard faintly at certain hours from stated points at the bottom of the great ravines, while still others try to explain the devil's hopyard, a bleak, blasted hillside where no tree, shrub, or glass blade will grow. Then, too, the natives are mortally afraid of the numerous whippoorwills which grow vocal on warm nights. It is vowed that the birds are Hold on. We're gonna Google this word. I've never seen this word before. How y'all doing today, chat? I'm gonna take a minute. Google this word. Oh.
Psychopomp.
Oh, it is psychopomp. Okay. Yes, we made Google say it, so I could hear it. That's how I learned how to say words. Psychopomp, lying in wait for the souls of the dying, and at the time their eerie cries in unison with the sufferer's struggling breath. If they can catch the fleeing soul when it leaves the body, they instantly flutter away, chittering in demonic laughter. But if they fail, they subside gradually into a disappointed silence. These tales, of course, are obsolete and ridiculous, because they came down from very old times. Dunwich is indeed ridiculously old, older by far than any of the communities within 30 miles of it. South of the village, one may still spy the cellar walls and chimney of the ancient Bishop House, which was built before 1700, whilst the ruins of the mill in the Falls, built in 1806, form the most modern piece of architecture to be seen. Industry did not flourish here, and the 19th century factory movement proved short-lived. Oldest of all are the great rings of rough stone columns on the hilltops, but these are more great rings of more generally attributed to the Indians than to the settlers. Deposits of skulls and bones found within these circles and around the sizable table like rock on Sentinel Hill, sustained the popular belief that such spots were once the burial places of the, oh my god, of the Native Americans. That's all I got. I don't know what else to say. Even though many, I don't know how to say this, ethnologists, disregarding the absurd improbability of such a theory, persist in believing the remains people. We have to be very careful. H.P. Lovecraft was a very racist man. So chapter 1 consisted of us talking about Dunwich, the city of, a little bit of what happened of the past. So this is interesting. I'm curious about what the horrors are of Dunwich. Let me bring this up. There we go. Okay. So chapter 2. It was in the township of Dunwich, in a large and partly inhabited farmhouse, set against the hillside 4 miles from the village, and 1.5 miles from any other dwelling, that Wilbur Whitley was born at 5 a.m. on Sunday, February 2nd, 1913. This date was recalled because it was Candlemas, which most people in Dunwich curiously observe under another name, and because the noises in the hills had sounded, and all the dogs of the countryside had barked persistently throughout the night before. Less worthy of notice was the fact that the mother was one of the decandent Whateleys, a somewhat deformed, unattractive albino woman of 35, living with an aged and half-insane father, about whom the most frightful tales of wizardry had been whispered in his youth. Okay. This is fine, chap. Lavinia Whitley had no known husband, but according to the custom of the region, made no attempt to disavow the child, considering the other side of whose ancestry the country folk might, and did, speculate as widely as they chose. On the contrary, she seemed extremely proud of the dark, goatish-looking infant, who formed such a contrast to her own sickly and pink albinism, and was heard to mutter many curious prophecies about its unusual powers and tremendous future. Okay, well, you know, this is fine. Lavinia was one who would be apt to mutter such things, for she was a lone creature, given to the wandering amidst thunderstorms in the hills, and trying to read the great odorous books which her father had inherited through 2 centuries of Whateleys, and which were fast falling to pieces with age and wormholes. She had never been to school, but she was filled with disjointed scraps of ancient lore that old Whately had taught her. The remote farmhouse had always been feared because of old Whately's reputation for black magic, and the unexplained death by violence of Miss Whately, when Lavinia was 12 years old, and had not helped to make the place popular. Isolated among strange influences, Lavinia was fond of wild and grandiose daydreams and singular occupations, or was her leisure much taken up by household cares in a home from which all standards of order and cleanliness had long since disappeared? Okay, this is fine. Okay. There was a hideous screaming which echoed above, even the hill noises, and the dogs barking on the night Wilbur was born. But no known doctor or midwife presided at his coming. Neighbors knew nothing of him till a week afterward, when old Whately drove his sleigh through the snow into Dunwich village, and discoursed incoherently to the group of loungers at Osborne's general store. There seemed to be a change in the old man, an added element of furtiveness in the clouded brain which subtly transformed him from an object to a subject of fear, though he was no one to be perturbed by any common family event. Amidst it all, he showed some trace of the pride later noticed in his daughter, and what he said of the child's paternity was remembered by many of the hearers years later afterward. Oh dear God. Okay. I don't care what folks think of the Vinny's boy looked like his paw. He wouldn't look nothing like you, except you needn't think. Oh God, the only folks in the folks hereabouts, the Vinny's read some. Oh good Lord, and has seen some things, and most of you only tell about. I calculate her man is as good a husband as you'd find this side of Aylesbury. And oh, for frick's sake, you know as much about the hills as I do. You wouldn't amount of church when nor her. Let me tell you something. Someday you folks will hear a child of Lavinia's a calling. Its father's name on the top of Sentinel Hill. My God. The only person who saw Wilbur during the first month of his life were old Zachariah Whately of the undecayed Whateleys and Earl Sawyer's common-law wife, Mammy Bishop. Mammy's visit was frankly one out of curiosity, and her subsequent tales did justice to her observations. But Zachariah came to lead a pair of Alderney cows, which old Whately had bought of his son Curtis. This marked the beginning of a course of cattle buying on the part of small Wilbur's family, which ended only in 1928, when the Dunwich horror came and went. Yet at no time did the ramshackle Whately barn seem overcrowded with livestock. There came a period when people were curious enough to steal up and count the herd that grazed precariously on the steep hillside above the old farmhouse, and they could never find more than 10 or 12 anemic, bloodless-looking specimens. Lainey, hey, how you doing? Evidently, some blight or distemper, perhaps, sprung from the unwholesome pasturage or the diseased fungi and timbers of the filthy barn, caused a heavy mortality amongst the Whately animals. Odd wounds or sores, having something of the aspect of incisions, seemed to afflict the visible cattle, and once or twice during the earlier months, certain callers fancied they could discern similar sores about the throats of the of some of the other people in town. That's I'll go with that. What am I reading? I am reading the Dunwich Horror. Is that am I pointing the right way? The Dunwich Horror by H.P. Lovecraft. He is a very dark, racist man. And, yeah, we're on chapter 2. I'm sitting here like, what was this man on? What drugs did he take? What, like, did he take mushrooms or something? Like, it's dark. It's dark. We're on page, like, 10 pages in, maybe? And we're not even 10 pages in. We're, like, 4. I'm sorry, we're 6 pages in. Yeah, so it's like I had, like, the stories are really good. They're really good horror stories. But the problem is like, I really have to be careful because it's, like, just little details here and there can be construed as extremely racist. So, like, I have to just be careful. But, I mean, granted, though, it was little details that pop out, but they're really good horror stories, nonetheless. He's got some good Cthulhu mythos and stuff like that, which I don't think this one is particularly part of it. I know At the Mountains of Madness is, and I know another one is, but I don't know if this one is. So. Okay, let's see. But how you doing today, Lainey? In the spring after Wilbur's birth, Lavinia resumed her customary rambles in the hills, bearing in her misproportioned arms with the swarthy child. Public interest in the Whateleys subsided after most of the country folk had seen the baby, and no one bothered to comment on the swift development which that newcomer seemed every day to exhibit. Wilbur's growth was indeed phenomenal, for within 3 months of his birth he had attained a size and muscular power not usually found in infants under a full year of age. His motions and even his vocal sounds showed a restraint and deliberateness highly peculiar in an infant, and no one was really unprepared when, at 7 months, he began to walk unassisted with falterings, which another month was sufficient to remove. It was somewhat after this time, on Halloween, that a great blaze was seen at the midnight on the top of Sentinel Hill, where the old table-like stone stands amidst its tumulus of ancient bones. Considerable talk was started when Silas Bishop of the Undecayed Bishops mentioned having seen a boy running sturdily up that hill ahead of his mother about an hour before the blaze was remarked. Silas was rounding up a stray heifer, but he nearly forgot his mission when he fleetingly spied the two figures in the dim light of his lantern. They darted almost noisily through the underbrush, and the astonished watchers seemed to think they were entirely enclosed. Afterward, he could not be sure about the boy, who may have had some kind of a fringed belt and a pair of dark trunks or trousers on. Wilbur was never subsequently, I don't know why words hurt me, seen alive and conscious without complete and tightly buttoned attire, the disarrangement or threatened disarrangement of which always seemed to fill him with anger and alarm. His contrast with his squalid mother and grandfather in this respect was thought very notable until the horror of 1928 suggested the most valid of reasons. What happened to my legs? My legs are invisible. I'm just a floating head today. I was cold, so I got the invisibility cloak, and just kind of put it over my legs. That's all I got for that. I don't know how, I don't want to do, a full body thing, because I just wear sweatpants all day. Okay, let's see. The next January, gossips were mildly interested in the fact that Lavinia's... Yeah, okay. Lavinia's brat... Yes! Yeah, see, a racist comment that I stopped myself from reading. Lavinia's brat had commenced to talk, and at the age of only 11 months, his speech was somewhat remarkable, both because of the difference from the ordinary accents of the region and because it displayed a freedom from infantile lisping of which many children of 3 or 4 might well be proud. Okay, I like to hear little kids go, Walter, like Walter. I want a weed. I love that. I love when kids talk like that. Gotta go back to work, stop by and say hi. Thank you so much for stopping in and saying hi, Lainey. I hope you have a good day at work, and I hope it's not too busy. You have a good one, and I will see you in the next stream. The boy was not talkative, yet when he spoke, he seemed to reflect some elusive element wholly unpossessed by Dunwich and its denizens. The strangeness did not reside in what he said, or even in the simple idioms he used, but seemed vaguely linked with his intonation, or with the internal organs that produced the spoken sounds. His facial aspect, too, was remarkable for its maturity, for though he shared his mother and grandfather's chinlessness, his firm and precociously shaped nose, united with the expression of his large eyes, to give him an air of adulthood, and well nigh natural intelligence. He was, however, exceedingly ugly despite, his appearance of brilliancy, there being something almost goatish or animalistic about his lips, and his skin, coarsely crinkly hair, and oddly elongated ears, and he was soon disliked even more decidedly than his mother and grandsire. And all conjectures about him were spiced with references to the bygone magic of old Whately, and how the hills once shook when he shrieked the dreadful name of in the midst of the circle of stones, with the great buck opened his arms before him. Dogs abhorred the boy, and he was always obliged to take various defensive measures against their barking menace. Oh, good! Okay, I'm just gonna get some water and we'll continue on with chapter 3. Yeah, we still got time. Let's see. Chapter 3. Meanwhile, old Whately continued to buy cattle without measurably increasing the size of his herd. He also cut timber and began to repair the unused parts of his house, a spacious peaked roof affair whose rear end was buried entirely in the rocky hillside, and whose 3 least ruined ground floor rooms had always been sufficient for himself and his daughter. Well, I mean, at least he started fixing the house. There must have been reserves of strength in the old man to enable him to accomplish so much hard labor, and though he still babbled dementedly at times, his carpentry seemed to show the effects of some sound calculation. It had already begun as soon as Wilbur was born, when one of the many tool sheds had put suddenly in order, boarded and fitted with a stout fresh log. Now, in restoring the abandoned upper story of the house, he was a no less thorough craftsman. His mania showed himself only in its tight boarding up of all the windows in the reclaimed section, though many declared that it was a crazy thing to bother with the reclamation at all. Reclamation? That's it, that's the word. Less inexplicable was his fitting of another downstairs room for his new grandson, a room which several callers saw, though no one was ever admitted to the closely boarded upper story. This chamber he lined with tall, firm shelving, which he began gradually to arrange in apparently careful order. All the rotting ancient books and parts of books which during his own day had been heaped promiscuously in odd corners of the various rooms. I made some use of them, he would say as he tried to mend a torn black letter page with paste prepared on his rusty kitchen stove, but the boys fittin' to make better use of him. He'd have him as well as for nothing are going to be all of his learning. It's hard to read some of this, I swear. Okay. When Wilbur was a year and 7 months old, in September of 1914, his size and accomplishments were almost alarming. He had grown as large as a child of 4 and was a fluent and incredibly intelligent talker. He ran freely about the fields and hills and accompanied his mother on all her wanderings. At home, he would pore diligently over the odd pictures and charts in his grandfather's books, while old Whately would instruct and chastise him? I don't know how to say that. Through long, hushed afternoons. By this time, the restoration of the house was finished, and those who watched it wondered why one of the upper windows had been made into a solid plank door. It was a window in the rear of the east gable end, close against the hill, and no one could imagine why a wooden runway was built up to it from the ground. About the period of the work's completion, people noticed that the old tool house, tightly locked and windowlessly boarded since Wilbur's birth, had been abandoned again. The door swung listlessly open, and when Earl Sawyer once stepped within after a cattle-selling call on old Whately, he was quite discomposed by the singular odor he encountered. Such a stench. He arrived as he had never before smelt in all his life, except near the circles on the hills, and which could not come from anything sane or of this earth. But then the homes and sheds of Dunwich folk have never been remarkable for factory immaculateness. The following months were void of visible events, save that everyone swore to a slow but steadily increase to all the mysterious hill noises. On May Eve of 1915, there were tremors. So he would be about 5. There were tremors which even the Aylesbury people felt, whilst the following Halloween produced an underground rumbling, oddly synchronized with bursts of flame, them which Whately's doing, from the summit of Sentinel Hill. Wilbur was growing up uncannily, so that he looked like a boy of 10 as he entered his 4th year. Okay, so I was about right. He read avidly by himself now, but talked much less than formerly. A settled taciturnity? Taciturnity? I don't know. Was absorbing him, and for the first time, people began to speak specifically of the dawning look of evil in his goatish face. He would sometimes mutter in unfamiliar jargon and chant in bizarre rhythms, okay, which chilled the listener with a sense of unexplainable terror. The aversion displayed toward him by dogs had now become a matter of wide remark, and he was obliged to carry a pistol in order to traverse the countryside in safety. Oh, this is going to be good. His occasional use of the weapon did not enhance his popularity amongst the owners of canine guardians. The few callers at the house would often find Lavinia alone on the ground floor, while odd cries and footsteps resounded in the boarded-up second story. She would never tell what her father and the boy were doing up there, though once she turned pale and displayed an abnormal degree of fear when a fish peddler tried the locked door leading to the stairway. The peddler told the store loungers at Dunwich that he thought he heard a horse stamping on the floor above. The loungers reflected, thinking of the door and runway, and of the cattle that swiftly disappeared. Then they shuddered as they recalled tales of old Whately's youth and of the strange things they are called out of the earth when is sacrificed at the proper time to certain heathen gods. Oh, good lord. And for some time been noticed that dogs had begun to hate and fear the whole Whately place as violently as they hated and feared young Wilbur personally. In 1917, the war came, and Squire Sawyer Whately, as chairman of the local draft board, had hard work finding a quota of young Dunwich men fit even to be sent to a development camp. The government, alarmed at such signs of wholesale regional decadence, sent several officers and medical experts to investigate, conducting a survey which New England's newspaper readers may still recall. It was the publicity attending this investigation which sent reporters to the track of the Whateleys and caused the Boston Globe and Arkham Advertiser, I can read, it's fine, chat, don't worry, to print flamboyant Sunday stories of young Wilbur's precociousness. Old Whately's black magic, the shelves of strange books, the sealed second story of the ancient farmhouse, and the weirdness of the whole region and its hill noises. Wilbur was 4.5 then, and looked like a lad of 15. His lips and cheeks were fuzzy with a coarse, dark... What? And his voice had begun to break. Earl Sawyer went out to Whately Place with both sets of reporters and cameramen, and called their attention to the odd stench which now seemed to trickle down from the sealed upper spaces. It was, he said, exactly like a smell he had found in the tool shed abandoned when the house was finally repaired, and like the faint odors which he had sometimes... Wait, did I just read that at 4.5 he was growing, like, buzz? Like a beard? I was trying to figure out beard, mustache. Oh my god, and his voice had begun to break. Yeah, so he was going through puberty. Oh my god, at the age of 4. I still want my 4-year-old to go say, I want to go weeding, mama. Yeah, I just want that. That's at 4 years old. Found the tool shed abandoned when the house was finally repaired. And like the faint odors which he sometimes thought he caught near the stone circles on the mountains. Excuse me. Dunwich folk read the stories when they appeared, and grinned over the obvious mistakes. They wondered, too, why the writers made so much of the fact that old Whately always paid for his cattle in gold pieces of extremely ancient date. The Whateleys had received their visitors with ill-concealed distaste, though they did not dare court further publicity by a violent resistance or refusal to talk. So it's chapter 3. I'm going to get some water, and then we'll go for chapter 4. So, I'm thinking that Wilbur is the spawn of the devil. Sorry about that. I just need a stretch. Need a stretch, chat. Alright. Chapter 4. For a decade, the canals of the Whateleys sink indistinguishably into the general life of a morbid community, used to their odd ways and hardened to their May Eve and All Hallows orgies. Okay. This got weirder. Twice a year, they would light fires on the top of Sentinel Hill, at which times the mountain rumblings would recur with greater and greater violence. While at all seasons, there were strange and doings at the lonely farmhouse. Okay, look, I just want to explain. There's a reason why no one, like, we ban certain books, right? Right? We ban certain books. Why was H.P. Lovecraft never banned? Like, I'm so surprised that he wasn't banned. Cause I know a lot of schools banned Harry Potter. A lot of schools banned Mockingbird. Mockingbird with Atticus. I don't remember the book's name off the top of my head. And stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, this is fine. Yeah, but let's not ban him. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine, chat. It's fine. If he is banned at your local library, let me know. In the course of time, callers professed to hear sounds in the sealed upper story, even when all the family were downstairs, and they wondered how swiftly or how lingeringly a cow was usually sacrificed. There was taught to a complaint to the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, but nothing ever came to it, since Dunwich folk are never anxious to call the outside world's attention to themselves. About 1923, when Wilbur was a boy of 10, whose mind, voice, stature, and bearded face gave all the impressions of maturity, a second great siege of carpentry went on at the old house. It was all inside the sealed upper part, and from bits of discarded lumber, people concluded that the youth and his grandfather had knocked out the partitions and even removed the attic floor, leaving only one vast open void between the ground story and the peaked roof. They had torn down the great central chimney too and fitted the rusty range with a flimsy outside tin stovepipe. In the spring after the event, old Whately noticed a growing number of whippoorwills that would come out of the cold spring glen to chirp under his window at night. He seemed to regard the circumstance as one of the great significance, and told the loungers at Osborne's that the thought his time has almost come. They whistle just in tune with my breathing now, he said, and I guess they're getting ready to catch my soul. They know it's gonna... and calculate to miss it. You'll know, boys. I'm gone whether they get me or not. They keep us singing, laughing till break of dawn. They'll kind of quiet down, like I expect them at the souls they hunt for have some pretty tough tussles sometimes. I swear trying to read anything that he wrote for this dude is so freaking hard. I'm waiting on an email from Van so that I know that my shoes have shipped. On Lammas Night, 1924, Dr. Houghton of Aylesbury was hastily summoned by Wilbur Whately, who had lashed his one remaining horse through the darkness and telephoned from Osborne's in the village. He found old Whately in a very grave state, with a cardiac action and strenuous breathing that told of an end not far off. The shapeless daughter and oddly bearded grandson stood by the bedside, whilst from the vacant abyss overhead there came a disquieting suggestion of rhythmical surging or lapping as of the waves on some level beach. The doctor, though, was chiefly disturbed by the chattering night birds outside. A seemingly limitless legion of whippoorwills that cried their endless message in repetitions, timed diabolically to the wheezing gasps of the dying man. It was uncanny and unnatural, too much, thought Dr. Houghton, like the whole of the region who had entered so reluctantly in response to the urgent call. Toward 1 o'clock, old Whately gained consciousness and interrupted his wheezing to choke out a few words to his grandson. More space, Willie. More space soon. He grows, and that grows faster. It'll be ready to serve you soon, boy. Open up the gates to Yog. We'll just say Yog. I don't know how to say anything else. With a long chant that you'll find on page 751 of the complete edition. And then put a match to the prison. Fire from Aerith. Can't burn it now. No how. He was obviously quite mad, after a pause during which the flock of whippoorwills outside adjusted their cries to the altered tempo, while some indications of the strange hill noises came from afar off. He added another sentence or two. Feed it regular, Willie, and mind the quantity, but don't let it grow too fast. For the place for bus quarters or gets before he opens to Yog. It's all over and no use. Only them from beyond can make it multiply and work. Only them oldens as wants to come back. Oh dear God. Chat, this is so hard to read sometimes. But speech gave place to gasps again, and Lavinia screamed at the way the whippoorwills followed the change. It was a safe for more than an hour. When the final throaty rattle came, Dr. Houghton drew shrunken lids over the glazing eyes as the tumult of birds faded into silence. Lavinia sobbed, but Wilbur only chuckled whilst the hill noises rumbled faintly. They didn't get him, he muttered in his heavy bass voice. Wilbur was by this time a scholar of really tremendous in his one-sided way. It is quietly known by correspondence to many librarians in distant places, where rare and forbidden books of old days are kept. He was more and more hated and dreaded around Dunwich because of certain youthful disappearances, which suspicion laid vaguely at his door, but was always able to silence inquiry through fear or through use of that fund of old-time gold, which still, as in his grandfather's time, went forth regularly and increasingly for cattle buying. He was now tremendously mature of aspect, and his height, having reached the normal adult limit, seemed inclined to wax beyond that figure. In 1925, when a scholarly correspondent from Miskatonic University called upon him one day and departed pale and puzzled, he was fully 6 3/4 feet tall. Okay. Hey, is anybody getting vibes from, like, that last season, though? American Horror Story Apocalypse. That one. I'm kind of getting vibes from that. Just saying. It's kind of the vibes I'm getting. Through all the years, Wilbur had treated his half-deformed mother with a growing contempt, finally forbidding her to go to the hills with him on May Eve and Hollow Mass. And in 1926, the poor creature complained to Mamie Bishop of being afraid of him. "There's more about him, as I knows, and I can tell ya, Mamie," she said. "And nowadays, there's more nor what I know myself. I vow, God, I don't know what he wants, nor what he's trying to do." That Halloween, the hill noises sounded louder than ever. The fire burned on Sentinel Hill as usual, but people paid more attention to the rhythmical screaming of vast flocks of unnaturally belated whippoorwills, which seemed to be assembled near the unlightened Whately farmhouse. After midnight, their shrill notes burst into a kind of pandemonic catenation? Sure. which filled all the countryside, and not until dawn did they finally quiet down. Then they vanished, hurrying southward where they were fully a month overdue. What this meant, no one could quite be certain till later. None of the country folk seemed to have died, but poor Lavinia Whately was never seen again. In the summer of 1927, Wilbur repaired the 2 sheds in the farmyard and began moving his books and effects out to them. Soon afterward, Earl Sawyer told the loungers at Osborne's that more carpentry was going on in the Whately farmhouse. Wilbur was closing all the doors and windows to the ground floor and seemed to be taking out partitions, and he and his grandfather had done upstairs 4 years before. He was living in one of the sheds, and Sawyer thought he seemed unusually worried and tremendous. People generally suspected him of knowing something about his mother's disappearance, and very few ever approached his neighborhood now. His height had increased to more than 7 feet and showed no signs of ceasing its development. Oh my god. 7 feet tall. Oh my goodness. Okay. Excuse me, chap. Yeah, we still got a bit to go. I'm so cold. Okay, chapter 5. The following winter brought an event no less strange than Wilbur's first trip outside the Dunwich region. Correspondence with the Widener Library at Harvard, the National in Paris, the British Museum, the University of Buenos Aires, I can't say it, and the Library of Miskatonic University of Arkham had failed to get him the loan of a book he desperately wanted. So at length he set out in personal, shabby, dirty, bearded, and uncouth of dialect to consult the copy at Miskatonic, which was the nearest to him geographically. Almost 8 feet tall. 8 feet tall! My god. And carrying a cheap now valise from Osborne's general store, this goatish gargoyle appeared one day in Arkham in quest of the dreaded volume kept under lock and key at the college library. The hideous necro... Oh, how they say it in the game? It's Necronomicon? I think that's how you say it. I don't remember how they said it in the Call of Cthulhu game. Of the mad and oh my god, Latin version as printed in Spain in the 17th century. He had never seen a city before, but had no thought save to find his way to the university grounds, where indeed he passed heedlessly by the great white-fanged watchdog that barked with unnatural fury and enmity and tugged frantically at its stout chain. Wilbur had with him the priceless but imperfect copy of Dr. Dee's English version, which his grandfather had bequeathed him, and upon receiving access to the Latin copy, he at once began to collate the 2 texts with the aim of discovering a certain passage which would have come on the 751st page of his own defective volume. This much he could not refrain from telling the librarian, the same Henry Armitage, Ph.D., Princeton, John Hopkins, who had once called at the farm, who now politely plied him with questions. He was looking, he had to admit, for a kind of formula or incantation containing the frightful name Yogg, and it puzzled him to find discrepancies, duplications, and so Dunwich Horror is also part of the Cthulhu mythos, because they talk about the Necronomicon. I can read, it's fine. So, I'm curious. I was curious what that book held. Okay. and it puzzled him to find discrepancies, duplications, and ambiguity. I tried, which made the matter of determination far from easy. As he copied the formula he finally chose, Dr. Armitage looked involuntarily over his shoulder at the open pages, the left hand one of which, in the Latin version, contains such monstrous threats to the peace and sanity of the world. Nor is it to be thought, ran the text as Armitage mentally translated it, that man is either the oldest or the last of Earth's masters, or that the common bulk of life in substance walks alone. The old ones are, and the old ones shall be, not in the spaces we know, but between them. They walk serene and primal, undimensioned to us, unseen. Yog knows the gate. Yog is the gate. Yog is the key and guardian of the gate. Okay, so you have Cthulhu, who is God. And then you have Yog, who is... oh, God, I'm trying to think of Greek mythology. Is like the ferryman. He's kind of like the ferryman. He's the one that guards the gates. He's, okay. Whatever. This is, sure, why not? This is fine. H.P. Lovecraft is a weirdo. Great horror stories, though. Past, present, future are all one in Yog. He knows where the old ones broke through of old, and where they shall break through again. It's kind of like the three in Hercules. He knows where they have trod earth's fields and where they still tread them, and why no one can behold them as they tread. By their smell can men sometimes know them near, but of their semblance can no man know, saving only in the features of those they have begotten on mankind, and of those are mainly sorts differing in likeness from man's truest to the shape without sight or substance, which is them. They walk unseen in foul and lonely places, where the words have been spoken and the rites howled through at their seasons. But the wind gibbers with their voices, and the earth mutters with their consciousness. They bend the forest and crush the city, yet may not forest or city behold the hand that smites. Cadith? In the cold waste known them, and what man knows Cadith? The ice desert of the south and the sunken isles of ocean hold stones whereon their seal is engraven. Who hath seen the deep frozen city, or the sealed tower long garland with seaweed and barnacles? Ah! Great Cthulhu is their cousin. Yet can he spy them only dimly? As foundness shall ye know them. Their hand is at their throats, yet ye see them not. And their habitation is even one of their guarded threshold. Yog is the key to the gate, whereby the spheres meet. Man rules now where they ruled once. They shall soon rule where man rules now. After summer is winter, and after winter is summer. They wait patient and potent, for here shall they reign again. Okay, that's not creepy. That's fine. Excuse me, chat. Dr. Armitage, associating what she had been reading with what he had heard of Dunwich and its brooding presence, and of Wilbur Whately and his dim, hideous aura that stretched from a dubious bruise to a cloud of probable something, felt a wave of fright as tangible as a distraught of the tomb's cold clamminess. I think this just finished. Oh, it's about to finish. Okay.
This is one. So is this.
Hold on. Well, felt a wave of fright as tangible as a draught of the tomb's cold clamminess. The bent, goatish giant before him seemed like the spawn of another planet or dimension, like something only partly of mankind and linked to gulfs of essence and entity that stretched like titan phantoms beyond all spheres of force and matter, space and time. Presently, Wilbur raised his head and began speaking in that strange, resonant fashion which hinted at sound-producing organs unlike the run of mankind's. "Mr. Archer," she said, "I calculate I've got to take that book home. They's things in it I've got to try under certain conditions that I can't get here, and it be a mortal sin to let a red tape rule hold me up. Let me take it along, sir, and I'll swear that nobody knows the difference. I don't need to tell you I'll take good care of it, and want me to put that copy in the shape it is." Come on, email. Okay, that's not any email. He stopped as he saw firm denial in the librarian's face, and his own goatish features grew crafty. Armitage, half ready to tell him he might make a copy of what parts he needed, thought suddenly of the possible consequences and checked himself. There was too much responsibility in giving such a being the key to such blasphemous outer spheres. Whately saw how things stood and tried to answer lightly. "Well, all right, if you need that way about it. Maybe Harvard won't be so fussy as you'll be." And without saying more, he rose and strode out of the building, stopping at each doorway. Armitage heard the salvage yelping at the great watchdog and studied Whately's gorilla-like lope as he crossed the bit of campus visible from the window. He thought of the wild tales he had heard. He'd recalled the old Sunday stories and the advertiser. I can read. These things and the lore he had picked up from Dunwich rustics and villagers during his one visit there. Unseen things not of Earth, or at least not of tri-dimensional Earth. Rushed and horrible through New England's glens, and brooded obscenely on the mountain tops. Of this he had long felt certain. Now he had seemed to sense the close presence of some terrible part of the intruding horror, and to glimpse a hellish advance in the dominion of the ancient and once passive nightmare. He locked away the Necronomicon. I can't say the book, chat. With a shudder of disgust, but the room still reeked with an unholy and unidentifiable stench. "As a phallus shall you know them," he quoted. Yes, the odor was the same as that which had sickened him at the Whately farmhouse less than 3 years ago. He thought of Wilbur, goatish and ominous, once again, and laughed mockingly at the village rumors of his parentage. "Inbreeding," Armitage muttered half aloud to himself. "Great God, what simpletons! Show them Arthur, great God Pan, and they'll think it was a common Dunwich scandal. But what thing, what cursed shapeless influence on or off these three-dimensional Earths was Wilbur Whately's father, born on Candlemas 9 months after May Eve of 1912? When the talk about the odd earth noises reached clear to Arkham, what walked on the mountains that May night? What horror fastened itself on the world in half-human flesh and blood? During the ensuing weeks, Dr. Armitage set about to collect all possible data on Wilbur Whately and the formless presences around Dunwich. He got in communication with Dr. Houghton of Aylesbury, who had attended old Whately in his last illness and found much to ponder over in the grandfather's last words as quoted by the physician. A visit to Dunwich village failed to bring out much that was new, but a close survey of the Necronomicon, I would Google it, but the word is so long, in those parts which Wilbur had sought so avidly, seemed to supply new and terrible clues to the nature, methods, and desires and the strange evils so vaguely threatening this planet. Talks with several students of archaic lore in Boston, and letters to many others elsewhere, gave him a growing amazement which passed slowly through varied degrees of alarm to a state of really acute spiritual fear. As the summer drew on, he felt dimly that something ought to be done about the lurking terrors of the upper Miskatonic Valley, and about the monstrous being known to the human world as Wilbur Whately. Chapter 6, chat. Oh my goodness. We still have so much to go. How many chapters are there? Okay, there's 10 chapters. Hey, Indigo. How you doing? Whew. Excuse me. Hydrate. I was just gonna hydrate. Oof. Hydrate again? That's a lot of hydrating. Oh, there we go. I need to stretch my neck. I need my Wawa. It's orange Wawa today. I do though when reading, to keep, you know, myself hydrated. So we're in the middle of H.P. Lovecraft's Dunwich horror. This book is weird. That's all I've got. I don't know what else to say to this, except that it gives off hella American Horror Stories apocalypse vibes. Like hella vibes from that season. Okay, we can start the next chapter. But how you doing, Indigo? Now I have the hiccups. You finished reading your 56 book series? So wait, okay. I'm gonna probably read this wrong. So you had 56 books in one series? Or you read 56 different book series? Let's say my brain's a little slow today. It's one series? What is it? Now I'm curious. There are like 100 more visual novels. What? What? Is it like for an anime or something? Cause holy bejesus. Holy bejesus. Alright, chapter 6. We need to finish the story before I fall asleep. The Dunwich horror. It's not like the story's boring. It's actually really good. It's just that I'm just sitting here like, what the fudge is happening? My eyes are getting sleepy because of allergies. Okay. The Dunwich horror itself came between Lammas and the equinox in 1928. Dr. Armitage was among those who witnessed his monstrous prologue. He had heard, meanwhile, of Whately's grotesque trip to Cambridge, and of his frantic efforts to borrow or copy from the Necromonica. At the Widener Library, those efforts had been in vain since Armitage had issued warnings of the keenest intensity to all librarians having charge of the dreaded volume. Wilbur had been shockingly nervous at Cambridge, anxious for the book, yet almost equally anxious to get home again, as if he feared the results of being away long. Early in August, an half-expected outcome developed. In the small hours of the 3rd, Dr. Armitage was awakened suddenly by the wild, fierce cries of the savage watchdog on the college campus. Deep and terrible, the snarling, half-mad growls and barks continued. always in mounting volume, but with hideously significant pauses. Then there rang out a scream from a wholly different throat, such a scream as roused half the sleepers of Arkham, and haunted their dreams ever afterward. Such a scream as could come from no being born of earth, or wholly of earth. Armitage, hastening into some clothing and rushing across the street and lawn to the college buildings, saw that others were ahead of him, and heard the echoes of a burglar alarm still shrilling from the library. An open window showed black and gaping in the moonlight. What had come and indeed completed its entrance, for the barking and the screaming, now fast fading into mixed low growling and moaning, proceeded unmistakably from within. Some instinct warned Armitage that what was taking place was not a thing for unfortified eyes to see, so he brushed back the crowd with authority as he unlocked the door. Among the others, he saw Professor Warren Rice and Dr. Francis Morgan, men to whom he had told some of the conjectures and misgivings, and these two he motioned to accompany him inside. The inward sounds, except for a watchful, droning whine from the dog, had by this time quite subsided, but Armitage now perceived with a sudden start that a loud chorus of whippoorwills among the shrubbery had commenced a damnably rhythmical piping, as if in unison with the last breaths of a dying man. Okay, sure. Ooh, indigo. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds really good. I want to read that. Gonna write that down. Is it really? Okay, cool. Because I have Amazon. I use my dad's Amazon. Because I don't order anything unless, you know, he lets me. So, because I ask him, like, can I order? And I don't order anything. I just order books. Yeah, so. And if it's free, because I also have, like, the first book to, Pretty Little Liars. I want to read the books now that I've watched the show, because I still love the first few seasons of the show, but after, like, season 5, it just got to be bad. After they tried to do the spin-off of the show, it got to be bad. Have you watched Troll Hunters on Netflix? I have not watched Troll Hunters that I'm aware of. Wait. No. No. I don't know. I'd have to go and check. Sounds like Jake. Okay, that's cool. I'll definitely look into it because it sounds really, really good. I have like 10,000 other books, but that's fine. I can. Shit, it's amazing. I will definitely look into it because it sounds amazing. And, you know, I'm into, you know, the whole zombies, vampires, gods kind of thing. Demons are a little iffy, but usually if it's done really well, I'm just like, oh my god, that was really good. Okay. It has a movie coming out? Oh, yeah, that's gonna be good. Is it like a Netflix movie, or is it gonna be like a movie? Okay. The building was full of frightful stench, which Dr. Armitage knew too well, and the three men rushed across the hall to the small, reading room, whence the low whining came. For a second, nobody dared to turn on the light. Then Armitage summoned up his courage and snapped the switch. One of the three, it is not certain which, shrieked aloud at what sprawled before them among disordered tables and overturned chairs. Professor Rice declares that he wholly lost consciousness for an instant, though he did not stumble or fall. You blacked out. I know, because I blacked out when I was riding a roller coaster. It's not fun. The thing that lay half bent on its side is in a pool of greenish yellow ichor. I think I said that right. And stickiness was almost 9 feet tall. And the dog had torn off all the clothing and some of the skin. It was not quite dead, but twitched silently and spasmodically while its chest heaved in monstrous unison with the mad piping of the expectant whippoorwills outside. Bits of shoe leather and fragments of apparel were scattered around the room, and just inside the window an empty canvas sack lay where it had evidently been thrown. Near the central desk a revolver had fallen, a dented but undischarged cartridge later explaining why it had not been fired. The thing itself, however, crowded out all other images in the time. It would be not wholly accurate to say that no human pen could describe it, but one may properly say that it could not be vividly visualized by anyone whose ideas of aspect and contour are too closely bound up with the common life forms of this planet and the 3 known dimensions. It was partly human, beyond a doubt, with very man-like hands and head, and the goatish chinless face, and the stamp of the Whateleys upon it. But the torso and lower parts of the body were... I don't know how to say this word. Logically, it was fabulous, apparently. Oh, I kind of figured. I just didn't know if I said it right. It's been delayed. No, the author is hiring a company to make it the first movies. Nice. So they're gonna do. She's gonna do a lot of movies then. Curious, conjugated blood and rotten skin combined into a jelly. Ew. But good to know. Oh, I did say it? Yes. Come on. I read phonetically, and sometimes I think I say words wrong. Because obviously English, some words aren't said like they're spelled. So it's kind of throws me off a little bit sometimes. So the only generous clothing could have been enabled it to walk on Earth unchallenged or uneradicated. I hate this. Above the waist, it was anthropomorphic. English is hard. I don't like it. And, you know, I live in Texas, so I'm just like, whatever. I don't care. English. Why? English, why do you gotta be like this? It's only about an hour and a half. I'm trying to wake up so I don't fall asleep. And it's not that anything's boring, it's just I'm tired. Though its chest, where the dog's rending paws still rested watchfully, had the leathery, reticulated hide of a crocodile or alligator. The back was bald with yellow and black, and dimly suggested the squamous covering of certain snakes. Below the waist, though, it was the worst. Okay, we're gonna be very careful of them. Cajun and redneck dialect combined into my accent is terrible. Indigo, that's a mood. So, there's points of where when I start getting really, really tired, or when I start talking really, really slow, you'll be able to hear my accent. Like, my accent will come out really thick, and it's just like, I can hear it. I'll starting, because I can hear my voice now, but when I start to hear my accent come out, I'm just like, okay, I gotta go to bed now, because I'm exhausted. Below the waist, though. You hate your accent? No, I bet it sounds good. Oh, who's... It was the worst. Right here, all of human resemblance left off, and sheer fantasy began. The skin was... Oh my god. Okay. The skin was thickly covered with coarse black fur, and from an abdomen a score of long, greenish-gray tentacles with red, sucking mouths protruded limply. And we're done. Did his mama... Was his daddy Cthulhu? You try doing voices so that it helps. Delicious. Indigo. Their arrangement was odd. It seemed to follow the symmetries of some cosmic geometry unknown to Earth or the solar system. On each of the hips, deep set in a kind of pinkish orbit, was what seemed to be rudimentary eye, whilst in lieu of a tail were dependent on kind of trunk or feeler with purple markings, and many evidence of such undeveloped mouth or throat. What the actual fuck? The limbs, save for their black fur, roughly resembled the hind legs of prehistoric Earth's giants, terminated ridgy veined pads that were neither hooves nor claws. What is this? Sounds like a Saturday. Sounds like a Saturday night in a very specific place. This man. Yeah. Okay. So he has noodles coming out of his hips. Okay. There's an eyeball. I don't even know. Okay. And they're fuzzy noodles. So this is weird. Oh, prehistoric, whatever. When the thing breathed, its tail and tentacles rhythmically changed color. What was this man on when he wrote these? I mean, Edgar Allan Poe, you know, drank himself to write. What the hell did H.P. Lovecraft do? A lot of drugs, chat. A lot of drugs. That's this man probably should have been put in an insane asylum. Okay, did that really happen, Indigo? Please tell me that actually happened somewhere in Louisiana. I mean, have you heard there's this new thing? I hate Twitter, by the way. Apparently in Oregon, they have like you know, the red light district. They have literally the red light district, but they actually have strippers outside on platforms dancing. And I'm like, how? I mean, they're not showing anything. They all have, you know, everything's technically covered that needs to be covered, and so they legally can't be prosecuted. Yeah. You're not gonna say where specifically, but yes. Oh my god. Yeah. Fun fact, Indigo. Fun fact. I hate Twitter. I found that out today, and I was like, and then someone was like, our new dystopian world, because they were like wearing gas masks and everybody had gloves on to trade the money and stuff, and I'm just sitting here like, yep, this is our world now. We're living in a weird dystopian horror movie now. This is fine, and I didn't get my zombies. These take the aggression out on the damn zombies. As if from some circulatory cause normal to the non-human side of its ancestry. In the tentacles, this was observable as a deepening of the greenish tinge, whilst in the tail it was manifest as a yellowish appearance, which altered with a sickly grayish white in the spaces between the purple rings. Of genuine blood, there was none. His daddy is Cthulhu. Only the fetid, greenish-yellow ichor, got it, which trickled along the painted floor beyond the radius of the stickiness, and left a curious discoloration behind. As the presence of the three men seemed to rouse the dying thing, "Run away!" it began to mumble without turning or raising its head. Dr. Armitage made no written record of its mouthings, but asserts confidently that nothing in English was uttered. At first, the syllables defied all correlation with any speech of Earth, but toward the last, there came some disjointed fragments, evidently taken from the Necronomicon. I think I'm saying that wrong, but that's fine. That monstrous blasphemy in quest of which the thing had perished. These fragments, as Armitage recalls them, ran something like, Shagog. Yeah, he's trying to summon Yogg. It's fine. The third leg wasn't a leg. Oh no! 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 That's some weird stuff. They trailed off into nothingness as a whippoorwill shrieked in rhythmical crescendos of unholy anticipation. Then came a halt in the gasping, and the dog raised his head in a long howl. A change came over the yellow goatish face of the prostrate thing, and the great black eyes fell in appallingly. Outside the window, the shrilling of the whippoorwills had suddenly ceased, and above the murmurs of the gathering crowd, there came the sound of a panic-struck whirling and fluttering. Against the moon, vast clouds of feathery watchers rose and raced from sight, frantic at that which they had sought for prey. All at once, the dog started up abruptly, gave a frightened bark, and leaped nervously out the window by which it had entered. A cry rose from the crowd, and Dr. Armitage shouted to the men outside that no one must be admitted till the police or medical examiner came in. He was thankful that the windows were just too high to permit of peering in, and drew the dark curtains carefully down over each one. By the time 2 policemen had arrived, and Dr. Morgan, meeting them in the vestibule, was urging them for their own sakes to postpone entrance to the stench-filled reading room till the examiner came and the prostrate thing could be covered up. I'm using an Necronomicon. Icon. Icon. Okay, so I'm saying it right. I'm using an actual book. I'll show you the back of the book. Icon? Nomicon? Icon? Necronom. Okay, Nomicon. Okay. I'll get it. I just gotta practice the word. I'm so bad. You should see me try and play Danganronpa. First off, it took me forever to learn how to say that. Second, whenever someone has a name, I have to get one of my mods to be like, hey, help me pronunciate things, because ZD has no way of pronunciating words whatsoever. Just helping? No, you're fine. You're fine. I wasn't sure if I was saying it correctly, so I appreciate the help. The fact that you know is fantastic, because I do not know. I is potato. Look, I even has potato emo. What potato emo? Where's my potato? There's my potato. Oh, I just wanted potato, but the song goes well with potato, so it's fine. The fact that now my potato is looking at his past relatives. That was super unattended. I know a bunch of weird words, you can count on me. Ah, good to know, Indigo. Good to know. Okay, let's see. Meanwhile, frightful changes were taking place on the floor. One need not describe the kind and rate of shrinkage and disintegration that occurred before the eyes of Dr. Armitage and the Professor Rice, but it is permissible to say that aside from the external appearance of face and hands, the really human element in Wilbur Wheatley must have been very small. When the medical examiner came, there was only a sticky whitish mass on the painted boards, and the monstrous odor had nearly disappeared. Apparently, Wheatley had had no skull or bony skeleton. at least in any true or stable sense. He had taken someone after his unknown father. You mean Cthulhu? Because I'm 90% sure his dad was Cthulhu. At this point. Indigo. Oh my god, I almost spit my water out with that. Okay, it's almost 2, it's almost 3. Okay, let me... I need to message my friend to see if we're still on for tonight. Okay, so we had to cancel Tuesday. We couldn't play DVD on Tuesday, so we are gonna try and stream tonight. No promises, but we are gonna try. Okay, but I just want to message her really quickly and talk with her about that. Okay. This is gonna be good. That's what I'm all about. You're good. That was hilarious. I damn near spit my water out laughing. Oh my god. It's fantastic, Indigo. Great jokes. Okay. Excuse me. I'm not sick. I'm not dying. Don't worry about it. Oh, interesting. So, you know, I live in Texas, and many people are not happy with our governor trying to open up, Texas. But, to be honest, I don't think he's opening up the state of Texas for other people. I think he's just opening up the state of Texas, for the people of Texas, because no one's allowed. I still think travel is banned right at the moment. But I think, you know, he's opening malls. He's opening a couple other places, retail places. You know, up to 25% occupancy. But, you know, there's this whole thing that malls have more than one entrance. So unless you make only 1 or 2 entrances open, then it's gonna be a pain in the ass. Aw, thank you. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I was excited to see that they were opening up like state parks again, because I want to go hiking, because I want to go outside. I ordered new shoes. And I want to use them. Not just for my treadmill either. Apparently Cajuns are immune, because I have not heard of for any Cajun getting corona. I heard that because of Mardi Gras there was a lot of cases. But then again, who knows how many people were actually, like, native Louisianians. New Orleans? Nolians? I don't. Native people to Louisiana. Or how many people actually traveled there, got sick, and traveled back to wherever the hell they lived. Sorry. It's fine. I can't word. Alright, Chapter 7. Yet all this was only the prologue of the actual Dunwich horror. Formalities were gone through by bewildered officials, abnormal details were duly kept from press and public, and men were sent to Dunwich and Aylesbury to look up property and notify any who might be heirs of the late Wilbur Whately. They found the countryside in great agitation, both because of the growing rumblings beneath the domed hills, and because of the unwanted stench and the surging, lapping sounds which came increasingly from the great empty shell formed by Whately's boarded-up farmhouse. Earl Sawyer was tended the horse and cattle during Wilbur's absence and had developed woefully acute case of nerves. The officials devised excuses not to enter the noisome boarded place, and were glad to confine their survey of the deceased living's quarters, the newly mended sheds, to a single visit. They filed a ponderous report at the courthouse in Aylesbury, and litigations concerning airship are said to be still in progress. Amongst the innumerable Whateleys, decayed and undecayed, of the upper Miskatonic Valley. Oh fuck. Okay. Louisianians, that's a thing? I think I said that. Or, okay, my French is like a -2. I know mon cher, and that's it. I was learning Spanish in high school, and now I want to learn Japanese, so... And my Spanish is not good. I can tell you where the bathroom is and food is, or ask where the bathroom and food is, and that's about it. And like some directions, as long as you need to go right, I can tell you where you need to go. I don't remember the one for left, I just remember right. So just keep going 4 rights and you're back where you started, it's fine. An almost interminable... You're not a native Cajun, but your family is still learning Cajun? I mean, hey, that's cool. I mean, that's like a lot of people come here to Texas. They're like, you know, I'm not a native Texan, but I came here as fast as I could. And I was like, I am actually, personally me, I am first generation Texan. My dad is from Washington, and my mom is from California. How the hell they made it here, who knows? But I'm glad they did, because I got to be born here. I don't know where my brother was born. I think he was born in New Mexico. You're 43% Irish and 2% Cajun. I'm Greek, and I never shut the hell up. I'm Greek, I think I'm Irish. And I'm 100% Texan. Yeehaw. Okay. An almost interminable manuscript in strange characters written in a huge ledger and adjusted a sort of diary because of the spacing and the variations in ink and penmanship, presented a baffling puzzle to those who found it on the old bureau which served at its owner's desk. After a week of debate, it was sent to Miskatonic University, together with the deceased collection of strange books, for study and possible translation, but even the best linguistics soon saw that it was not likely to be unriddled with ease. No trace of the ancient gold with which Wilbur and Old Whately always paid their debts has yet been discovered. And 55%, whatever the fuck I am. Yeah, whatever the fuck, yeah. That's pretty funny. I'm like, I don't know what I am. What is it? My dad's brother, my uncle, he got one of those tests done. The one where you send in your blood and stuff, and they tell you what you are. We got it back, but I don't know. I don't have the picture anymore, so it's. I don't remember what I was. Like, at least on my dad's side. My mom's side, I have no idea. All I've been told I'm Greek, and that's about it. And then I'm related to Robin Hood. Oh, and then I'm a duchess. I'm like, okay. Okay, Grandma. Okay. You keep believing that. And when I get those duchess payments, yeah, I'll let you know. It was in the dark of September 9th, ooh, day before my birthday, that the horror broke loose. Oh, never mind. My birthday's not tomorrow. The hill noises had been very pronounced during the evening, and dogs barked frantically all night. Early risers on the 10th, my birthday, noticed a peculiar stench in the air. About 7 o'clock, Luther Brown, the hired boy at George Corey's between Cold Spring Glen and the village, rushed frenziedly back from his morning trip to 10-acre meadow with the cows. He was almost convulsed with fright as he stumbled into the kitchen, and in the yard outside the no less frightened herd was pawing and lowing pitifully. Having followed the boy back into the panic they shared with him. Between gasps, Luther tried to stammer out his tale to Miss Corey. Oh my god. Are you serious? Or is it a joke? Because that would be awkward. Completely serious? Oh, no way. That sucks. And extremely awkward. Okay. Up there in the road beyond the glen, Miss Corey, there's something been there. It smells like thunder and all the bushes and little trees and pushed back from the... Too bad. Yeah. Only if you guys weren't related. And little trees is pushed back from the road like a house being moved along of it. And that ain't the worst. There's prints in the mud, Miss Corey. Great round prints as big as barrel heads, all sunk down deep like an elephant had been long. Only that's a sight more nor 4 feet can make. I looked at 1 or 2 before I run, and I see everyone was covered with lines spreading out from one place, like as if a big palm leaf fans were 3 times as big as they is. Head have been down into the rut, and the smell was awful, like what it is around Wizard Whately's old house. This is hard to read. Here he faltered, and seemed to shiver afresh with the fright that had sent him flying home. Miss Corey, unable to extract more information, began telephoning the neighbors. You have an announcement. What's your announcement, Indigo? When she got Sally Sawyer, housekeeper at Seth Bishop's, the nearest place to Whately's, it became her turn to listen instead of transmit. For Sally's boy, Chauncey, who slept poorly, had been up on the hill toward Whately's, and had dashed back in terror after one look at the place and at the pasturage where Mr. Bishop's cows had been left out all night. Yes, Miss Corey, came Sally's tremulous voice over the party wire. Chauncey had just come back posting and couldn't have talked for being scared. He says old Whately's house is all blowed up, with the timbers scattered around like they'd been dynamite inside. Only the bottom floor ain't through, but it's all covered with a kind of tar-like stuff that smells awful and drips down off the edges onto the ground where the side timbers is blown away. And that awful kinder marks in the ground, and round marks bigger around than a hogshead, and all sticky with all stuff that is blowed up house. Oh, good lord. Chauncey, he says, that leads off into the meadows where a great swath winding and barn and matted down, and all the sun walls tumbled every which way wherever it goes. Nice! That would be really cool. Yeah, whenever I have to relate them, I'll use my accent just because I'm like, we talk a lot like that here. I try not to talk too much with my accent. I know because sometimes it's hard for people to understand me. But when I start to slow down, my words, I do start to talk slower, but my jaw becomes thicker, and then a lot of people can't understand what the hell I'm saying. I'm like, oopsie-doodles. Okay, she has a blind mic. Oh, I can understand country bumpkin. There we go. And he says he, Miss Corey, as how he sought to look for Seth's cows, frightened as he was, and found them in the upper pasture high, the devil's hop yard, in an awful shape. Half of them's clean gone, and half of them left and sucked most dry of blood, with sores on them like they'd been on Whately's cattle. Lavini's brat was born Seth, he's gone now. To look at him now, I'll vow he won't to get very nigh Wizard Whately's. Chauncey didn't look to big matted swath that are left the pasturage, but he says he thinks my brain hurts. I tell you, Miss Corey, there's something aboard. As hadn't aboard, and for one thing, that Wilbur Whately has come to the bad end he deserved. At the bottom of the breeding of it, he wasn't all human himself. I says to everybody, and I think he and old Whately must raise something in there that nailed up the house, as ain't even so human as he was. There has been unseen things around Dunwich, living things as ain't human and ain't good for human folks. The ground was talking last night, and towards morning Chauncey he heard the whippoorwills so loud and called Spring Glen he couldn't sleep none. Then he thought he heard another faint like sound over towards Wizard Whately's. A kind of ripping or tearing of wood, like some big box or crate had been opened. What with this and that, he didn't get to sleep at all till sunup, and no sooner was he up this morning, but he's got to go over to Whately's and see what the matter. He's seen enough, I tell you, Miss Corey. Y'all need to hang up. Just hang up. Stop talking to each other. Y'all just need to hang up. Stop talking. It's please. This don't mean no good, and I think as all the men folks ought to get up and party and do something. I know something's awful about and feeling my time is nigh. Though only God knows just what it is. That hurt my brain. Trying to read this is terrifying. Did your Luther take account of what them big tracks led to? No? Well, Miss Corey, if there was on the Glen Road this time of the Glen and ain't got no to your house yet, I calculate they must go to the Glen itself. They would do that. I'm done with this conversation. Indigo, thank you so much for that, host. They would do that. I says Spring Glen ain't no healthy nor decent place. The whippoorwills and fireflies, they never did act like they were creators of God. And they's them, as they says, you can hear strange things a rushing and a talking in the air. Dawn near, oh my God, you stand in the right place between the rocks falls and Bear's Den. By that noon, fully 3/4, thank God we're done with that conversation. By that noon, fully 3/4 of the men and boys of Dunwich were trooping over the roads and meadows between the new-made Whately ruins and Cold Spring Glen, examining in horror the vast monstrous prints, the maimed bishop cattle, the strange noisome wreck of the farmhouse, and the bruised matted vegetation of the fields and roadsides. Whatever had burst loose upon the world had assuredly gone down into the great sinister ravine, for all the trees on the banks were bent and broken, and a great avenue had been gouged into the hanging underbrush. It was as though a house launched by an avalanche had slid down through the tangled growths of the almost vertical slope. From below, no sound came, but only a distant, undefinable feeder, and it is not to be wondered at that the men preferred to stay on the edge and argue, rather than descend and beard the unknown cyclopean horror as its lair. 3 dogs that there were the party. You're all good, Indigo. I sees it. Rather than descend and beard the blah blah blah. 3 dogs that were with the party had barked furiously at first, but seemed cowed and reluctant when near the glen. Someone telephoned the news to the Aylesbury Transcript, but the editor, accustomed to wild tales from Dunwich, did no more than concoct a humorous paragraph about it, an item soon afterward reproduced by the Associated Press. That night everyone went home. Every house and barn was barricaded as stoutly as possible. Needless to say, no cattle were allowed to remain in open pasture. About 2 in the morning, a frightful stench and the savage barking of the dogs awakened the household at Elmer Fry's on the eastern edge of Cold Spring Glen. and all agreed that they could hear a sort of muffled swishing or lapping sound from somewhere outside. Miss Fry proposed telephoning the neighbors, and Elmer was about to agree when the noise of splintering wood burst in upon their deliberations. It came apparently from the barn, and was quickly followed by hideous screaming and stamping amongst the cattle. The dogs slavered and crunched close to the feet of the feared, numbered family. Fry lit a lantern through force of habit, but knew it would be death to go out into that dark farmyard. The children and the womenfolk whimpered, kept from screaming by some obscure instinct of defense. I'm cold now. Which told them their lives depended on silence. At last, the noise of the cattle subsided to a pitiful moaning, and a great snapping, crashing, and crackling ensued. The Frys, huddled together in the sitting room, did not dare to move until the last echoes died away, far down in Cold Spring Glen. Then, amidst the dismal moans from the stable and the demonic piping of late whippoorwills in the glen, Selina Fry tottered onto the phone and spread the news she could of the second phase of the horror. The next day, all the countryside was in a panic, and cowed, uncommunicative groups came and went where the fiendish thing had occurred. 2 titan swaths of destruction stretched from the glen to the Fry farm. Monstrous prints covered in bare patches of ground, and one side of the old red barn had completely caved in. Of the cattle, only a quarter could be found and identified. Some of these were in curious fragments, and all that survived had to be shot. Earl Sawyer suggested that help be asked from Aylesbury or Arkham, but others maintained it would be of no use. Old Whately, of a branch that hovered about halfway between soundness and decayedness, made darkly wild suggestions about rites that ought to be practiced on the hilltops. He came of a line where tradition ran strong, and his memories of chantings in the great stone circles were not altogether connected with Wilbur and his grandfather. Darkness fell upon a stricken countryside, too passive to organize for real defense. In a few cases, closely related families would band together and watch in the gloom under one roof, but in general, there were only repetition of the barricading of the night before, and a futile, ineffective gesture of loading muskets and setting pitchforks handily about. Nothing, however, occurred except some hill noises, and when the day came, there were many who hoped that the new horror had gone as swiftly as it had come. There were even bold souls who proposed an offensive expedition down in the glen, though they did not venture to see an actual example to the still reluctant majority. When night came again, the barricading was repeated, though there was less huddling together of families in the morning. Both the Fry and Seth Bishop households reported excitement among the dogs and vague sounds and stenches from afar, while early explorers noted with horror a fresh set of the monstrous tracks in the road skirting Sentinel Hill. As before, the sides of the road showed a bruising indicative of the blasphemy stupendous bulk of the horror, whilst the conformation of the tracks seemed to argue a passage in 2 directions, as if the moving mountain had come from the Cold Spring Glen and returned to it along the same path. At the base of the hill, a 30-foot swath of crushed shrubbery, saplings, perpendicular places did not deflect the inexorable trail. Whatever the horror was, it could scale a sheer stony cliff of almost complete verticality. And as the investigators climbed around to the hill's summit by safer routes, they saw that the trail ended, or rather reversed there. Welcome back, Indigo. I might do a voiceover for their first book. I would definitely ask first, Indigo. I would definitely try and get the okie dokies from them, because I don't want you to get in like trouble, because the only reason, so how I'm doing my books, I know a lot of people do reading on Twitch. However, there are rules that you're supposed to follow, and a lot of people aren't following these rules. You can read anything that is in the public domain, as well as you can stream TV shows or movies that are in the public domain. So anything that's been past 75 years after the author's death. So, okay, just making sure. Because a lot of people, some people that I know in the horror community, they want to, like, watch old time TV shows or certain shows or read certain books that, Dean Kunitz and Stephen King and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, you cannot read those. I mean, unless you don't save the VOD, but the point is to save the VOD, so that way people can listen to you read. I mean, unless it's literally just you reading a chapter per stream. Yeah, I mean, it's okay still to do it if you, like, you can contact the publisher or contact the author and be like, hey, I was wondering if I could do a voiceover for this, or if I could read this aloud and record it or stream it or something. And they'll get back in contact with you, because I actually I contacted the publisher of my book that I'm reading from. And I was like, hey, can I read these books or this? And the person that replied was like, oh yeah, the only thing that's copyrighted is the artwork and, like, the book cover and the art pages and everything like that. That's what's copyrighted. The story itself is obviously not copyrighted. You can go online and find any of H.P. Lovecraft's odd tales, but that's where I'm at. So I mean, you can. There's no harm in asking or sending an email to the publisher, because they got back with me within like 30 minutes. Like they were like on top of it, and I was like, hey, because I'd like to get the Edgar Allan Poe stories and H.G. Wells. But again, we're under quarantine and they haven't opened up a damn library or a bookstore, so. I mean, granted, I know I can order from Amazon, but I'm lazy. Darkness fell upon a stricken countryside, too passive to organize for real defense. In a few cases, closely related families would band together and watch in the gloom under one roof, but in general there were only a repetition of the barricading of the night before, and a futile, ineffective gesture of loading muskets and setting pitchforks heavily about. Nothing, however, occurred except some hill noises, and when the day came, there were many who hoped that the new horror had gone as swiftly as it come, between bold souls, still reluctant majority. Okay, we were over here. My bad. I reread stuff. Okay. It was here that the Whateleys used to build their hellish fires and chant their hellish rituals by the table-like stone on May Eve and Hollow Mass. Now that very stone formed the center of a vast space thrashed around by the mountainous horror, whilst upon its slightly concave surface was a thick and fetid deposit of the same tarry stickiness observed on the floor of the ruined Whateley farmhouse. When the horror escaped, men looked at one another and muttered. Then they looked down the hill, apparently. The horror had descended by a route much the same as that of an ascent. To speculate was futile. Reason, logic, and normal ideas of motivation stood confounded. Only old Zebulon, who was not with the group, could have done justice to the situation or suggested a plausible explanation. Thursday night began much like the others, but it ended less happily. The whippoorwills in the glen had screamed with such unusual persistence that many could not sleep, and about 3 a.m. all the party telephones rang tremendously. Those who took down their receivers heard a frightened, mad voice shriek out, "Help! Oh my God!" And some thought a crashing sound followed the breaking off of the exclamation. There was nothing more. No one dared to do anything, and no one knew till morning whence the call came. Then those who had heard it called everyone on the line, and found that only the Frys did not reply. The truth appeared an hour later, when a hastily assembled group of armed men trudged out to the Fry place and head of the glen. Oh my God. You can picture my voice as Tabitha from the books. Good to know. She's basically, I'm pretty sure the series is still going. She wrote all those books with herself and her husband. Well, yeah, they're pretty busy then. But it's always good. Okay. Around much the same. To speculate with feudal reason, logic, and normal ideas. I think. Oh my god, I'm like, this is that. Thursday night, much like the others, but in less happily. The whipper rules in the glen had screamed with such unusual persistence that many could not sleep. At about 3 a.m., all the party telephones rang tremendously. Those who took down the receivers heard a fright-mad voice shriek out, "Help! Oh my God!" And some thought a crashing sound followed and breaking off to the exclamation. There was nothing more. No one dared do anything, and no one knew till morning whence the call came. That those who had heard it called everyone on the line and found that only the Fries did not reply. The truth appeared an hour later when a hastily assembled group of armed men trudged out to the Fry place at the end of its glen. It was horribly yet hardly a surprise. There were more swaths and monstrous prints, but there was no longer any house, and it had caved in like an eggshell. And amongst the ruins, nothing living or dead could be discovered, only stench and tarry stickiness. The Elmer Fries had been erased from Dunwich. I agree. I should definitely hydrate, because, yeah. Whew! My throat's getting dry. Okay, so we have 8, 9, and 10 left. So we're getting close. It's getting 3. So we'll probably finish about 3:30. And that'll probably be it for today's stream, because it is getting my throat is getting sore. So. But really quickly, yeah, it was definitely getting a bit dry. But I will be right back. I'm going to take a quick stretch break. I'm going to go and use the restroom. I encourage you all to get up and stretch and do a thing like a chicken wing. Grab some water, grab a snack. We're still going to be here for a little bit. So get comfy, and I will be right back, chat. Here is my awesomely awesome overlay. Maybe, if I can find it. Nope, I can't. Oh, okay, the overlay doesn't work on this. I will be right back. Oops. Here, my duck will keep you company. Jeopardy music intensifies. Do 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 do. Usually I have an overlay, but it doesn't. And I don't have it to work with this particular setup. I need to though. I need to go over. I need to go through my scenes and all my stuff on OBS and just fix everything and just clean everything up. Okay. I was gonna go back and get my headset on. I'm like, no, dummy, that's not what you're doing today. Still waiting for a message. Can I start streaming when I'm 18 or do I have to wait? You can stream anytime you want. You can, if you hit affiliate before you turn 18, then I think you need parents' permission. I would wait, but I think it's okay. So sorry. I was going through my email to see if they sent me. Oh, they did. Oh, that's what you guys said? Come on. They're like, hey, don't forget you have $20 off. And I'm like, how about sending me my like shipping email stuff? You jack monkeys. Okay. Yo, if you have to wait for your computer, that's fair. I would definitely wait then for just for your computer and stuff like that. And then once you do, then it's fine. Yeah, it's definitely okay. And then that way, when you hit affiliate, you can start making money and whatnot. So, you're good. Okay, there. It's cold. It's cold now. It's cold. Burr. It's like, I go outside, it's like 90 degrees. I come back in here, I'm like, burr. Burr, cold. But, I'm getting used to the heat again. Because I got pretty sick last year, for my birthday. And that's how I came up with. Oh, by the way, Indigo, when you're streaming and you make affiliate and you need emotes, let me know. That's how I came up with this emote. Is my Jesus biscuit. I named it Jesus biscuit. It's actually a honey butter chicken biscuit from Whataburger. However, I named it Jesus biscuit because after I was sick, my dad got it for me the next morning. And it was like, oh, look. It's like Jesus done blessed it with his hands because it was so damn good. Wait, how would I set up a reading overlay? I won't have a face cam, and I would only have one computer. If you're not going to have a face cam, then you can easily just, like, you can do what I'm doing and do, like, just, like, a really serene picture, you know, depending, or a drawing or something like that, like a small animation or drawing, or like, just, you know, a picture, and have some, like, rain music going in the rain sounds in the background. Or I'm using actually a Harry Potter ASMR channel, a couple channels on YouTube that I know of. So I mean, it's completely up to what you want your aesthetic to be. So Eye is cold. Eye is a cold bean. I need to cover my duck so he's not cold too. I know he's stuffed. Leave me alone. I don't want him. Okay, chapter 9. Chapter 8, because I can count. I hate Roman numerals. In the meantime, a quieter yet even more spiritually poignant phase of the horror had been unwinding itself behind the closed door of a shelf-lined room in Arkham. The curious manuscript record or diary of Wilbur Whately, delivered to Miskatonic University for translation, had caused much worry and bafflement among the experts in languages both ancient and modern. Its very alphabet, notwithstanding a general resemblance to the heavily shaded Arabic used in Mesopotamia. I tried, chat, please, I'm sorry. Oh, also, I'll take your offer for the emotes. I'm Raj too. You are? Indigo, have you joined the Discord? Have you posted anything? Because, like, you should. I like seeing other people's arts. It helps me get inspired sometimes. I recently got really inspired by, like, Crash. The Nitro. Crash Bandicoot Nitro. And Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia. Got it. Got it. Okay, thank you. I is not good at words. And so, I don't know what the hell I was saying. Okay, anyways, back to the story. Mesopotamia, got it, being absolutely unknown to any available authority. The final conclusion of the linguistics was that the text represented an artificial alphabet, giving the effect of a cipher. Though, oh my god. Though none of the usual methods. Yeah, you're more than welcome to. And none of the usual methods of cryptographic solutions seem to furnish any clue, even when applied on the basis of every tongue the writer might conceivably have used. The ancient books taken from Whately's quarters, while absorbingly interesting and in several cases promising to open up new terrible lines of research among philosophers and men of science, were of no assistance whatever in this matter. One of them, a heavy tomb with an iron clasp, was in another unknown alphabet. This one, of a very different cast, and resembling Sanskrit more than anything else. The old ledger was at length given wholly into the charge of Dr. Armitage, both because of his peculiar interest in the Whately matter, and because of the wide linguistic learning and skill in the mystical formula of antiquity and the Middle Ages. Armitage had an idea that the alphabet might be something esoterically used by certain forbidden cults. Oh. Are we surprised? No. Not one bit, chat. And which have inherited many forms and traditions from the wizards of the Saracenic world. That question, however, he did not deem vital, since it would be unnecessary to know the origin of the symbols if, as he suspected, they were used as a cipher in a modern language. It was his belief that, considering the great amount of text involved, the writer would scarcely have wished the trouble of using another speech than his own, save perhaps in certain special formula and incantations. Accordingly, he attacked the manuscript with the preliminary assumption that the bulk of it was in English. You're posting them all? You're all good, Indigo. Dr. Armitage knew from the repeated failures of his colleagues that the riddle was a deep and complex one, and that no simple mode of solution could merit even a trial. All through late August, he fortified himself with the massed lore of cryptography, drawing upon the fullest resources of his own library, and waiting night after night amidst the arcana of, oh my god, Trismius? Pographia? A bunch of words that I don't know how to say because they're in different languages, and I'm not going to try because I'll screw it up. Davies and Thickest 18th century treatise. Oh my god, you scared the bejesus out of me. What's that?
You just haven't had Taco Bell.
Is it my BP5 layer?
Should be your beef layer. 2 crunchy tacos and some chips and salsa. The cheese sauce is hot right now.
Okay. I'm still streaming. Wait, didn't you get me a Mountain Dew? Oh, I would Indigo, but there are too many. There's like 4 different books that are in different languages. One's Polygryphia, the other is De Furtivis Literarum Notis, Latin, French, Triate. Nope, that's Spanish. Dis Chifres, Cryptomentius Pacifica. Yeah, I tried. I tried my ass off. I tried. Again, I read things phonetically, so me trying to say shit is horrible. And such fairly modern authorities as Blair von Martin and Kluber's cryptographic. You caught me slipping. I can't. Yeah, I don't worry about it. I can't either. I was like, oh look, stuff to skip. Can't read that. He interspersed his study of the books with attacks on the manuscript itself, and in time became convinced that he had to deal with one of those sublist and most ingenious of cryptograms, in which many separate lists of corresponding letters are arranged like the multiplication table, and the message built up with arbitrary keywords known only to be initiated. The older authorities seem rather more helpful than the newer ones. The Armitage concluded that the code of the manuscript was one of great antiquity, no doubt handed down through a long line of mystical experiments. Several times he seemed near daylight, only to be set back by some unforeseen obstacle. Then, as September approached, the clouds began to clear. Certain letters, as used in certain parts of the manuscript, emerged definitely and unmistakably, and it became obvious that the text was indeed in English. I will check them out after stream today. I'm just gonna finish up. I'm gonna finish up this story, and then I'm gonna eat. My dad brought me Taco Bell, beefy 5-layer burrito. I'm sure you guys heard of beefy 5-layer burrito, which is my favorite. Some chips and queso, which is my favorite, and then 2 beefy crunchy tacos, which they're good if I'm craving them, but I'm not craving them. I just want my beefy 5-layer and chippies. And I thought he would have brought me a Mountain Dew, but okay, I'll get greedy. On the evening of September 2nd, the last major barrier gave away, and Dr. Armitage read for the first time a continuous passage of Wilbur Whately's Annals. It was truth, a diary, as all had thought. It was crouched in a style clearly showing the mixed occult erudition and general illiteracy of the strange being who wrote it. Almost the first long passage that Armitage deciphered, an entry dated November 26, 1916, proved highly startling and disquieting. It was written, he remembered, by a child of 3 1/2 who looked like a lad of 12 or 13. You want it? It's pretty good. He goes. Well, he's an essential worker, so he has to go to work every day, and he brings food home from time to time. He'll stop through the drive-thrus and stuff. Today learned the outglow for the Sabbath. It ran, which did not like it being answerable from the hill and not from the air, that upstairs more ahead of me than I had thought it would be, and it is not like to have much earth brain. Shot Elam Hutchins' collie Jack when he went to bite me, and Elam says he would kill me if he does. I guess he won't. Grandfather kept me saying that Deho formula last night, and I think I saw the inner city at the 2 magnetic poles. I shall go to those poles when the earth is cleared off. If I can't break through with the, oh my god, Deho HNA formula? Yeah, I'm just gonna pronunciate, I'm not pronouncing this. When I commit it, they from the air told me at Sabbath that it would be years before I can clear off the earth, and I guess grandfather will be dead then. So I shall have to learn all of the angles of the planes and all the formulas between the year and the I don't know how to say that. They from the outside will help, but they cannot take body without human blood. That upstairs looks it will have the right cast. I can see it a little when I make the sign or blow the powder at it, and it is near like them at May Eve on the hill. The other face may wear off some. I wonder how I shall look when the earth is cleared and there are no earth beings on it. He that come with Eclo Sabbath, and I may be transfigured, there being much of outside to work on. What has he done for me? Morning found Dr. Armitage in a cold sweat of terror and a frenzy of wakeful concentration. No, that's not right. Hold on. Okay. He had not left the manuscript all night, but sat at the table under the electric light, turning page after page, with shaking hands as fast as he could decipher the cryptic text. He had nervously telephoned his wife he would not be home, and when she brought him a breakfast from the house, he could scarcely dispose of a mouthful. All that day he read on, now and then halted maddeningly as a reapplication of the complex key became necessary. Lunch and dinner were brought him, but he ate only the smallest fraction of either. Toward the middle of the night, he drowsed off in the chair, but soon woke out of a tangle of nightmares almost as hideous as the truths and menaces of the man's existence that he had uncovered. On the morning of September 4th, Professor Rice and Dr. Morgan insisted on seeing him for a while. It departed trembling and ashen gray. That evening he went to bed, but slept only fitfully. Wednesday, the next day, he was back at the manuscript, and began to take copious notes, both from the current sections and from those he had already deciphered. In the small hours of the night, he slept, in a little in an easy chair in the office. He was at the manuscript again before dawn. Sometime before noon, his physician, Dr. Hartwell, called to see him and insisted that he cease work. He refused. Brain, please work. Actually, it's more or less my mouth needs to, like, say words. There was the most vital importance for him to complete the reading of the diary, and promising an explanation in due course of time. That evening, such as twilight fell, he finished his terrible perusal, got it, and sank back exhausted. His wife, bringing his dinner, found him in a half-comatose state, but he was conscious enough to warn her off with a sharp cry when he saw her eyes wander toward the notes he had taken. Weakly rising, he gathered up the scribbled papers and sealed them off in a great envelope, which he immediately placed in his inside coat pocket. He had sufficient strength to get home, but was so clearly in need of medical aid that Dr. Hartwell was summoned at once. As the doctor put him to bed, he could only mutter over and over again, "But what in God's name can we do?" I mean, I guess that would work, but I don't think that's going to help me pronunciate things. Because, you know, yeah, I don't know what part of the brain that is. So what are you going to be eating for dinner, Indigo? If you don't mind me asking. Dr. Armitage slept, but was partly delirious the next day. He made no explanations to Dr. Hartwell, but in his calmer moments spoke of the imperative need, got it, of a long conference with Rice and Morgan. His wilder wonderings were very startling indeed, including frantic appeals that something in a boarded-up farmhouse be destroyed, and fantastic references to some plan for the extirpation, got it, of the entire human race and all animal and vegetable life from the earth by some terrible elder race of beings from another dimension. What was this man on? Did this man do drugs? Like hardcore drugs? Like meth? Mushrooms? Like what did he do? How the hell did he come up with another dimension with Cthulhu? Probably manwiches? Those aren't bad. PCP could have been another one, yeah. I don't know, but this man was on drugs. I don't know. We also have Alice in Wonderland to finish. We need to finish Alice in Wonderland. Maybe we'll do that next month. Okay, because we also get to play Minecraft next month, too, so. Guys, I'm not kidding. We are like 5 subs away from playing Dark Souls. I may actually have to install that. I'm scared. Oh, it's PCP for dinner. Lols. Lols. He would shout that the world was in danger, since the elder things wished to strip it and drag it away from the solar system and cosmos of matter into some other plane of phase of entity from which it had once fallen. Of eons ago. At other times, he would call for the dreaded Necro Nom Icon. I'm probably saying that wrong still, so I'll get it. I have to hear the guy say it in Call of Cthulhu. I had to go back through my VODs and hear him say it. Oh, I did? Good for me. Good for me. I feel like it's said differently, but at least I'm getting it. And I know what this is. This is the Book of the Dead. Like vampires and stuff. Oh god. De Monolateria. Sure, okay, we'll go with that. Of, Remigus. I hate everything. In which he seemed hopeful of finding some formula to check the peril he conjured up. Necronomicon. Sounds like Comic-Con. Almost. Nomicon. So, Necronomicon. Because that's what we're calling it. Now I'm just going to make fun of it at this point. But for dead people. Oh, so it's Comic-Con for dead people. Okay, got it. That makes sense. Stupid fucking jokes. Alright, I'm sorry for my dumb jokes. Stop them! Stop them, he would shout. Those Whateleys meant to let them in, and the worst of all is left. Tell Rice and Morgan we must do something. It's a blind business, but I know how to make the powder. It hasn't been fed since the 2nd of August, when Wilbur came here to the death, and at this rate, but Armitage had a sound of physique despite his 73 years, and slept off his disorder that night. And without developing any real fever, he woke late Friday, clear of head, though sober with a gnawing fear and tremendous sense of responsibility. Saturday afternoon he felt able to go over to the library and summon Rice and Morgan for a conference. And the rest of the day and evening the three men tortured their brains in the wildest speculation and the most desperate debate. Strange and terrible books were drawn voluminously from the stacked shelves and from secure places of storage, and diagrams and formulas were copied with feverish haste and a bewildering abundance. Of skepticism there were none. All three had seen the body of Wilbur Whateley, and it lay on the floor in a room of that very building, and after that, not one of them could feel ever slightly inclined to treat the diary as a madman's raving. The only good jokes are bad jokes? Thank you. I make horrible dad jokes, and then I'm like, please don't leave, and then people leave. I'm like, no! I'm sorry, my dad jokes. But I have, like, I just tell really bad dad jokes, like, all the time. You love dad jokes? Thank God. Okay. Yay, people like my jokes. They're bad. Oh, what is it? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you a joke that will never get old. I still laugh my ass off to this day. So, my boyfriend and I, we were talking, and, you know, he was like, he's 6'3". And, you know, he was like, oh yeah, I used to play basketball, and he was telling me about, you know, so we were in a conversation about him playing basketball. And he was playing basketball, and he's like, yeah, I used to, like, dunk it and stuff like that. And I was like, the only thing I dunked was Oreos. And I lost my shit. I started laughing so hard at that. And he's like, babe, that's not even funny. But I lost it. I couldn't help. It was hilarious. Oh, you're 6'2"? Nice. I am 5'2". I'm very tiny. I'm very small. I'm a small bean. But I'm very, very feisty. And murdery. Only in games, though. Okay. Opinions were divided as to notifying the Massachusetts state. I'm still laughing. Oh my god, I'm crying laughing from that stupid joke. The only thing I dunk are Oreos. Dumbass. Stupid. Okay. I hate being the bean giant. Oh, why? Opinions were divided as to notifying the Massachusetts State Police, and the negative finally won. There were things involved which simply could not be believed by those who had not seen a sample, as indeed was made clear during certain subsequent investigations. Late at night, the conference disbanded without having developed a definite plan, but all day Sunday, Armitage was busy comparing formula and mixing chemicals obtained from the college laboratory. The more he reflected on the hellish diary, the more he inclined to doubt the efficiency of any material agent in stamping out the entity which Wilbur Whately had left behind him. The earth-threatening entity which, unknown to him, was to burst forth in a few hours and become the memorable Dunwich Horror. Why does this sound like they live on Hellmouth? Rather be shorter? I'd rather be 3 inches taller, but it's fine. In D&D, I always go for the shorter races. I just make myself normal height. I mean, like, so I ordered my shoes the other day, and then I had this moment of like, okay, this sucks, but then my boyfriend brought up a point. He's like, hey now, hey. And I was like, okay. I mean, that's kind of cool. I ordered my shoes, and I actually wear, like, only a 5.5 in women's, which is a 4 in boys. Because I was like, yeah, I wear a 4 in guys. Ha ha ha. And then it's like, no, those are the boys' shoes. Men's shoes don't start until they're, like, 7. You know, size 7. I'm like, oh. Okay. But then my boyfriend brought up the point that when we have a son, you can get all those old hand-me-down shoes. And I'm like, it's not a bad thought. You have size 13 shoes? Oh my goodness. I wear little baby shoes. Literally. Monday was a repetition of Sunday with Dr. Armitage, for the task in hand required an infinity of research and experiment. Further consultations of the monstrous diary brought about various changes of plan, and he knew that even at the end a large amount of uncertainty must remain. By Tuesday he had a definite line of action mapped out, and believed he would try a trip to Dunwich. Yeah, sure, I'd like to hear jokes. Indigo? Believed he would try a trip to Dunwich. Within a week, then on Wednesday, the great shock came. Tucked obscurely away in a corner of the Arkham Advertiser was a fictitious little item from the Associated Press telling what a record-breaking monster the bootleg whiskey of Dunwich had raised up. Armitage, half stunned, could only telephone for Rice and Morgan. Far into the night they discussed, and the next day was a whirlwind of preparation for the part of them all. Armitage knew he'd be meddling with terrible powers, yet saw that there was no way to annul the deeper and more malign meddling which others had done before him. Oh my god, how? I don't know if I get that joke. I don't know if my brain's letting me get that joke today. Okay. 96. Oh, 96. That's page 96. I'm talking about page... It's chapter 9. Oh. Oh. That's kind of sad. Gonna be honest. Little sad. Chapter died. Friday morning, Armitage, Rice, and Morgan set out by motor for Dunwich. Arriving at the village around 1 in the afternoon, the day was pleasant, but even in the brightest sunlight, a kind of quiet dread importance seemed to hover about the strangely domed hills and the deep, shadowy ravines of the stricken region. Now and then on some mountain top, a gaunt circle of stones could be glimpsed against the sky. From the air of hushed fright at Osborne's store, they knew something hideous had happened, and soon learned of the annihilation of the Elmer Fry house and family. Throughout that afternoon they rode around Dunwich, questioning the natives concerning all that had occurred, and seeming for themselves with rising pains of horror the drear Fry ruins with their lingering traces of the tarry sickness, the blasphemous tracks of Fry Yard, and the wounded Seth Bishop cattle. and the enormous swaths of disturbed vegetation in various places. The trail up and down Sentinel Hill seemed an image of almost cataclysmic significance, and he looked long at the sinister altar like stone on the summit. It's not that I don't. It's not that I don't want to say appreciate the jokes. That's pretty bad. But it's certain times and places, more or less, for those types of jokes. And it's kind of not really technically appropriate on Twitch. I don't want people to think that it's kind of like racist or talking or bad about a very big part of history. So it's more or less, it's a time and place for those type of jokes. But you're fine. Thank you for apologizing. It's yeah. There you go. As long as you understand, it's like just it's a time and place kind of thing for those jokes, and Twitch is kind of not that place for those. So it's just kind of a heads up for you as well. So for when you start streaming, you kind of know as well, because you don't want to get in trouble for that kind of stuff, especially stuff that you can kind of avoid. So yeah, TOS rules. Yeah, I mean I wouldn't say it's really TOS rules. It's more or less just being considerate to people to a point. It's just more or less you don't want to be yeah, I guess TOS rules too, racist can be part of it, but you know, you just don't want that, you know. You don't want people to be like, wow, you're really much of an asshole, and then, you know, people just sit there and just spam try and report you. Because I've seen that happen to several people, you know. The some of the body painters and stuff like that, they follow all the rules, but then someone, because they don't like yay, someone doesn't like read their message fast enough, they'll sit there and get everybody or all their friends to sit there and just spam report them, and so it sucks. So yay. Okay, so my friend Happy Headcase and I, we will be streaming later tonight, or we're gonna try, and that's the thing. So I'm gonna finish up chapter 9 and 10, and then I will call it for the day, and then I will be back at 7 p.m. Central, and we will be playing Dead by Daylight. Thank God I already downloaded it, and I played some last night. Sorry, just a second, guys. My boyfriend texted me, and I want to text it back really quick. Ow. So, I asked him last night, so, you know, if you played DBD, or if you know anything about DBD, which is Dead by Daylight, for those that don't know, is that recently they've added, I say recently, it's been several months now, they added charms in the game, and so I sent a picture over to my boyfriend, because he does woodworking, and I'm like, how possible is it that you can make one of these? And he just informed me that he can. Like, he's like, we should definitely do this. And I was like, yes. So there may be points in future streams where I could, maybe, because I'll do one that's for me personally, because it'll be like a wonky one most likely, where I do giveaways of the DVD charms. Or like a set. That'd be kind of cool. What do you guys think about that? No, yeah, totally understand, Indigo. You're not a bad person. It's not about that. I know someone else who's been a longtime friend. I've known him since I was like 6. He's like a little brother. He's like my little brother. And, you know, he's also really into dark jokes. And so, you know, our dads were police officers, and so it's just like we get the dark jokes. We do. We really, really do. It's just a thing. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have chat up on my phone. I'm texting my boyfriend back. And how cool would it be to have some of those charms as like necklaces or keychains? Granted, it would be like have to made to order because he would literally have to woodwork it, and I would paint it, and then like prime it, paint it, and then make sure it's like waterproof and stuff like that. So that would take time. So I need an Etsy. I need to make a store. Fuck. Shit, so much to do, so little time, so things to remember. Okay. So, how's everybody doing today? What's everybody playing? Doing Twitch things. I'm supposed to do Twitch things. I still owe everybody because I did, it was 10, I think it was 15 when I first got 15 subs. I was supposed to do Twitch things, but I don't know if it's still doing it, but Twitch Sings will not fucking work on my PC. Every time I get into Twitch Sings, and I'm like partially through a song, it just completely crashes on me, and I can't play it. I want to play it, because I promised everybody I would sing, and I have like an entire repertoire of like songs, and it won't let me play. And so I'm just like, okay, that's fine. Rude. Sorry, I'm just super annoying. Gonna play some DVD later. It's gonna be fun. And then tomorrow we're gonna play Fallout. And then actually next week, oh, I'm not. Thank you for letting me know. Because sometimes I feel like I'm super annoying, and that's why people leave. Oh god. Okay, me, but just me. Okay. Let's see. Where were we at? Okay. At length, the visitors apprised of a party of state police which had come from Aylesbury that morning in response to the first telephone reports of the Fry tragedy, decided to seek out the officers and compare notes as far as practical. This, however, they found more easily planned than performed, since no sign of the party could be found in any direction. There had been 5 of them in a car. But now the car stood empty near the ruins in the Fry yard. The natives, all of whom had talked with the policeman, seemed at first as perplexed as Armitage and his companions. Then old Sam Hutchins thought of something and turned pale, nudging Fred Farr and pointing to the dank deep hollow that yawned close by. God, he gasped, I tell him not to go down into the glen, and I never thought nobody knew them tracks and the smell and the whippoorwills a screeching down there in the dark old noonday. What? A cold shudder ran through natives and visitors alike, and every ear seemed strained in a kind of instinctive, unconscious listening. Armitage, now that he had actually come upon the horror and his monstrous work, trembled with the responsibility he felt to be his. Night would soon fall, and it was then that the monstrous blasphemy lumbered upon the eldritch course. Something in Latin that I can't read. The old librarian rehearsed the formula. He had memorized and clutched the paper containing the alternative once he had not memorized. He saw that his electronic flashlight was in working order. Rice beside him took from a valise a metal sprayer of the sort used in combating insects, while Morgan uncased a big game rifle on which he relied despite his colleagues' warnings that no material weapon would be of help. Armitage, having read the hideous diary, knew painfully well what kind of manifestation to expect, but he did not add to the fright of the Dunwich people by giving any hints or clues. He hoped that it might be conquered without any revelation to the world of the monstrous thing it had escaped. As the shadows gathered, the natives commenced to disperse homeward, anxious to bar themselves indoors, despite the present evidence that all human locks and bolts were useless before a force that could bend trees and crush houses when it chose. They spoke their heads at the visitors' plan to stand guard at the Fry ruins near the glen, and as they left, had little expectancy of ever seeing the watchers again. There were rumblings under the hills at night, and the whippoorwills piped threateningly. Once in a while, a wind sweeping up out of the cold spring glens would bring a touch of ineffable fetor to the heavy night air. Such a fetor smell, it's a smell, as all three of the watchers had smelled once before. It's like an odor. When they stood above a dying thing that had passed for 15 years and a half as human being, but the looked for terror did not appear. Whatever was down there in the glen was biding its time, and Armitage told his colleagues it would be suicidal to try to attack it in the dark. Morning came wanly, and the night sound ceased. It was gray, bleak day, with now and then a drizzle of rain, and heavier clouds seemed to be piling themselves up beyond the hills to the northwest. The men from Arkham were undecided what to do. Seeking shelter from the increasing rainfall beneath one of the few undestroyed Fry-out buildings, they debated the wisdom of waiting, or of taking the aggressive and going down into the glen in quest of their nameless monstrous quarry. The downpour waxed its heaviness, and distant peal of thunder sounded from far horizons. Sheet lightning shimmered, and then a forky bolt flashed near. Aw, thanks, Indigo. Bolt flashed near at hand, as if descending into the accursed glen itself. The sky grew very dark, and the watchers hoped that the storm would prevent a short, sharp one followed by clear weather. It was still gruesomely dark when, not much over an hour later, a confused babble of voices sounded down the road. Another moment brought to view a frightened group of more than a dozen men, running, shouting, and even whimpering hysterically. Someone in the lead began sobbing out words, and the Arkham men started violently when those words developed a coherent form. Oh my God, the voice choked out. It's gone again, and this time by day. It's about moving this very minute, and only the Lord knows when it's all to be on us all. The speaker panted into silence, but another took up his message. Nigh an hour ago, Wetly here heard the phone ringing, and it was Miss Corey, George's wife, that lives down by the junction. She says the hired boy Luther was about driving in the cows from the storm, the big bolt, when he sees all these trees bending in the mouth of the glen, opposite side of this, and smelt the same awful smell like he smelt when he found the big tracks last Monday morning. And he says there was a swishing, lapping sound, more what the bending trees and bushes can make, and all of a sudden, I'm not kidding, this is how the fuck we tell stories down here. I relate to this so much. All of a sudden, the trees along the road began to get pushed one side, and they were awful stomping and splashing in the mud. But mind you, Luther, he didn't see nothing at all. Only just the bending trees and underbrush. What the fuck is this story? I imagine some of this dialogue in Becky's voice. Guessing Becky's also from that stories that you told me earlier. Then, oh my God, there's more. Then, up ahead where Bishop's Brook goes under the road, he heard an awful creaking and straining on the bridge. And says he could tell the sound of wood starts cracking and split, and all the whiles he never see a thing. Only them trees and bushes bending, I can hear it. I can hear it. And when the swishing sound got very far off on the road towards Wizard Whately's and Sentinel Hill, the loser he had the guts to step up where he heard it first and look at the ground. It was all mud and water, and the sky was dark, and the rain was wiping out all the tracks about as fast as he could be. We begin at the glen mouth where the trees had moved. They were still some of the. Why am I can now read this? My accent gets really thick. Some of them powerful prints, big as barrels, like he'd seen Monday. Can't believe I can now fucking read this. Alright. At this point, the first excited speaker interrupted. But that ain't the trouble now. That was only the start. Zeb here was calling folks up, everybody, and was listening when a call from Seth Bishop's cut in. His housekeeper, Sally, was carrying on, fit to kill. She just seen the trees a bending beside the road and says they were kind of mushy around like an elephant puffing and treading ahead from the house. Then she up and spoke, sudden of a fearful smell. Says her boy Chauncey was a screaming, as how it was just like what he smelled up on the Whately Monday morning, and the dogs all barking and whining awful. And then she let out a terrible yell, and she says the shed down the road had just caved in like a storm had blowed it over. Only the wind wasn't strong enough to do that. Everybody was listening, and we could hear lots of folks on the wire gasping. All to Sally, she yelled again, and she says the front yard picket fence had just crumbled up through. That wasn't no sign of what done it. Then everybody on the line could hear Chauncey and old Seth Bishop yelling, and Sally was shrieking about something. Heavy had struck the house. Not lightning nor nothing, but something heavy against the front. It's keeping on launching itself again and again, though you couldn't see anything, nothing about the front windows. And then, this is exhausting. You don't remember her name, you just call her Becky. That's fair. That's fair. That's me in a lot of books. I'm like Lord of the Rings, for instance. I'm like, your name is Phil. Your name is Dennis. Your name is Angel, because that's all I got at the moment. I'm like, because I can't pronunciate anybody. Like Theoden, his name is like one of the few names I could actually pronunciate. Aragon and all that. Alright, let's get back to the southern accent. Even though they're in Massachusetts. Your name is Pointy McPoint Elfsman. Your name is Hobbit McHobbitson. Because that's all I got. Lines of fright deepened on every face, and Armitage, shaken as he was, had barely poise enough to prompt the speaker. And then Sally, she yelled about, "Oh hell, the house is a-caving in." And on the wire we could hear a terrible crashing. On a whole flock of screaming. Just like Elma Fry's place was took, only was the man paused, and another of the crowd spoke. That's all. Not a sound nor a squeak over the phone after that. Just still like we just heard it out of Fords and wagons all rounded up as many able-bodied men and folks as we could get at Corey's place and come up here to get what you thought best to do, but I think it's the Lord's judgment for our iniquities. Good for you. There's no mortal kin ever set aside. Armitage saw that the time for positive action had become, and spoke decisively to the faltering group of frightened rustics. Yeah, well now I'm talking like it again. We must follow it, boys. He made his voice as reassuring as possible. I believe there's a chance of putting it out of business. You men know that there's Whateleys were wizards. Well, this thing is a thing of wizardry, and must we put down by the same means. I've seen Wilbur Whately's diary, and read some of the strange old books he used to read, and I think I know the right kind of spell to recite to make the thing fade away. Of course, one can't be sure, but we can always take a chance. It's invisible. I knew it would be, but there's a powder in this long-distance sprayer that might make it show up for a second. Later on, we'll try it. It's a frightful thing to have alive, but it isn't as bad as what Wilbur would have let in if it lived longer. You'll never know what the world has escaped. Now we've only let one thing to fight, and it can't multiply. It can, though, do a lot of harm, so we mustn't hesitate to rid the community of it. We must follow it, and the way to begin is to go to the place that has just Been wrecked. Let somebody lead the way. I don't know your roads very well, but I've an idea. There might be a shorter cut across lots. How about it? Before I read the book, I need to watch The Princess and the Frog to practice my Cajun. That movie was good. I like that movie. Tatiana? Was that her name in the movie? I don't remember her name. I think that's what I said last time. Tatiana. The men shuffled about a moment, and then Earl Sawyer spoke, softly pointing with a grimy finger through the steadily listening strain. I guess you can get to Seth Bishop's quickies by cutting across the lower meadow, wading the brook at the low place and climbing through carriers mowing in the timber lot beyond that comes around on the upper road. Mighty Knight says the other side. It's Tiana? Okay. I wasn't sure. That's what I was thinking, but I wanted 100% make sure so I didn't sound like an asshole. Armitage with Rice and Morgan started to walk in the direction indicated, and most of the natives followed slowly. The sky was growing lighter, and there were signs that the storm had worn itself away. When Armitage inadvertently took a wrong direction, Joe Osborne warned him and walked ahead to show the right one. Courage and confidence were mounting, though. The twilight of the almost perpendicular wooded hill, which lay toward the end of the shortcut, and among whose fantastic ancient trees they had to scramble as if up a ladder, put these qualities to a severe test. At length they emerged on a muddy road to find the sun coming out. They were a little beyond the Seth Bishop place, but bent trees and hideously unmistakable tracks showed what had passed by. Only a few moments were consumed in surveying the ruins just around the bend. Just around the river bend. I lost my place. It was the Fry incident all over again, and nothing dead or living was found in either of the collapsed shells, which nothing dead or living was found in either of the collapsed shells, which had been the Bishop house and barn. No one cared to remain there amidst the stench and terry sickness, but all turned instinctively to the line of horrible prints leading toward the wrecked Whately farmhouse and the altar-crowned slopes of Sentinel Hill. As the men passed the sight of Wilbur Whately's abode, they shuddered visibly, and seemed again to mix hesitantly with their zeal. It was no joke tracking down something as big as a house that could not be seen, but that had all the vicious malevolence of a demon. Opposite the base of Sentinel Hill, the tracks left the road, and there was a fresh bending and matting visible along the broad swathes, marking the monster's former route to and from the summit. Armitage produced a pocket telescope of considerable power and scanned the steep green side of the hill. Then he handed the instrument to Morgan, whose sight was keener. After a moment of gazing, Morgan cried out sharply, passing the glass to Earl Sawyer and indicating a certain spot on the slope with his fingers. Sawyer, as clumsy as most non-users of optical devices are, fumbled a while, but eventually focused the lenses with Armitage's aid. When he did so, his cry was less restrained than Morgan's had been. God almighty, the grass and bushes are moving. It's a-going, slow like, creeping up to the top of this minute. Heaven only knows what for. Then the germ panic seemed to spread among the seekers. It was one thing to chase a nameless entity, but quite another to find it. Spells might be all he knew of the thing, and no reply seemed quite to satisfy. Everyone seemed to feel himself in close proximity to phases of nature and of being utterly forbidden and wholly outside the sane experience of mankind. Indigo! Oh my. Alright, last chapter, Chapter 10. It's about 3 pages. Retrospectively. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Good for you. I'm so curious to read these books. Are they vampires? Are they vampires? I want to know. Are they vampires? Excuse me. Okay. Last chapter, chat. And then I'll call it. And then I will be back in like 3 hours to play some DBD. And we're only going to play DBD for about maybe 2 hours. Sorry. That's a heads up. Vampires, werewolves, and demigods. Knew it. Okay. I was like, wait. I'm sure there's a reason why. Okay. Need more water. My throat hurts. And some demons, yeah. There was a lot of people that, Lucifer, the Netflix show, people found him extremely attractive. I haven't watched Lucifer yet. I think it's finally coming up to its last season, so I can actually, like, just binge it, so. I'm a person that will binge show. I'd rather. See? See, I was right. See? Okay. Chapter 10. Last chapter. In the end, the 3 men from Arkham, old, white-bearded, Dr. Armitage, stocky, iron gray, Professor Rice, and lean, youngish Dr. Morgan, ascended the mountain alone. After much patient instruction regarding its focusing and use, they left the telescope with the frightened group that remained in the road, and as they climbed, they were watched closely by those among whom the glass was passed around. It was hard going, and Armitage had to be helped more than once. High above the toiling group, the great swath trembled at its hellish maker repassed with snail-like deliberateness, and it was obvious that the pursuers were gaining. Curtis Whately of the decayed branch was holding the telescope when the Arkham party detoured radically from the swathe. He told the crowd that the men were evidently trying to get to a subordinate peak, which overlooked the swathe at a point considerably ahead of where the shrubbery was now bending. This indeed proved to be true, and the party were seen to gain a minor elevation only a short time after the invisible blasphemy had passed it. Then Wesley Corey, who had taken the glass, cried out that Armitage was adjusting the sprayer with which Rice held, and that something must be about to happen. The crowd stirred uneasily, recalling that the sprayer was expected to give the unseen horror a moment of visibility. 2 or 3 men shut their eyes, but Curtis Whately snatched back the telescope and strained his vision to the utmost. He saw that Rice from the party's point of vantage, above and behind the entity, and an excellent chance of spreading the potent powder with marvelous effect. Those without the telescope saw only an instant flash of gray cloud, a cloud about the size of a moderately large building near the top of the mountain. Curtis, who had held the instrument, dropped it with a piercing shriek into the ankle-deep mud of the road. He reeled and would have crumpled to the ground had not 2 or 3 others seized and steadied him. All he could do was moan half inaudibly, "Oh, great God, that." There was pandemonium of questioning, and only Henry Wheeler thought to rescue the fallen telescope and wipe it clean of mud. Curtis was past all coherence, and even isolated replies were almost too much for him. Bigger than a barn, all made squirming ropes. A huge thing, sort of shaped like a hen's egg, bigger than anything with dozens of legs, like hogsheads that half shut when they step. Ew, nothing solid about it. It's like jelly made of separate wriggling ropes pushed together. Great bulging eyes all over it. 10 or 20 mouths of trunks sticking out of its long sides, big as stovepipes, and tossing and open and shutting, all gray with kinder blue or purple rings. God in heaven, that half face on top. This is gross. This final memory, whatever it was, proved too much for poor Curtis, and he collapsed completely before he could say more. Fred Farr and Will Hutchins carried him to the roadside and laid him on the damp grass. Henry Wheeler, trembling, turned and rescued the telescope on the mountainside to see what he might. Through the lenses were discernible 3 tiny figures apparently running toward the summit as fast as the steep incline allowed. Only these, nothing more. Then everyone noticed a strangely unseeable noise in the deep valley behind. Even in the underbrush of Sentinel Hill itself, it was a piping of unnumbered whippoorwills. And in the shrill chorus, there seemed to lurk a note of tense and evil expectancy. Earl Sawyer now took the telescope and reported the three figures as standing on the topmost ridge, virtually level with the altar stone, but at considerable distance from it. One figure, he said, seemed to be raising its hand above its head at rhythmic intervals, and as Sawyer mentioned the circumstance, the crowd seemed to hear a faint, half-musical sound from the distance, as if a loud chant were occupying the gestures. The weird silhouette on the remote peak must have been a spectacle of infinite grotesqueness and impressiveness, but no observer was in a mood for aesthetic appreciation. "I guess he's saying the spell," whispered Wheeler as he snatched back the telescope. The whippoorwills were piping wildly and in singularly curious, irregular rhythm, quite unlike that of the visible ritual. Suddenly the sunshine seemed to lessen without the intervention of any discernible cloud. It was a very particular phenomenon, and was plainly marked by all. A rumbling sound seemed brewing beneath the hills, mixed strangely with a concordant rumbling which clearly came from the sky. Lightning flashed aloft, and the wondering crowd looked in vain for the portents of storm. The chanting of the men from Arkham now became unmistakable, and Wheeler saw through the glass that they were all missing their arms in the arithmetic incantation. From some farmhouse far away came the frantic barking of dogs. The change in the quality of the daylight increased, and the crowd gazed about the horizon in wonder. A purplish darkness, born of nothing more than a spectral deepening of the sky's blue, pressed down upon the rumbling hills. Then the lightning flashed again, somewhat brighter than before, and the crowd fancied that it had showed a certain mistiness around the altar stone on the distant height. No one, however, had been using the telescope at that instant. The whippoorwills continued their irregular pulsation, and the men of Dunwich braced themselves tensely against some imponderable menace with which the atmosphere seemed surcharged. Without warning came those deep, cracked, raucous vocal sounds which will never leave the memory of the stricken group who heard them. Not from any human throat were they born, for the organs of man can yield no such acoustic perversions. Rather would one have said that it came from the pit itself, and not their source had been so unmistakably the altar stone on the peak. It is almost to call them sounds at all, since so much of their ghastly infrabrass timbre spoke to dim seats of consciousness and terror, far subtler than the ear. Yet one must do so, since their form was indisputably, though vaguely, that of half-articulate words. They were loud as the rumblings and the thunder above which they were echoed. Yet did they come from no visible being, and because imagination might suggest a conjuncture source in the world of non-visible things, the huddled crowd at the mountain's base huddled still closer and winced. Lights off. As at the expectation of a blow. Yog rang the hideous, croaking out of space. Yeah. The speaking impulse, let's just say it's a chant, chat. The speaking impulse seemed to falter here, as if some frightful psychic struggle were going on. Henry Wheeler strained his eye at the telescope, but saw only the three grotesquely silhouetted human figures on the peak, all moving their arms furiously in strange gestures as their incantation drew near its culmination. From what wells of fear of feeling, from what unplumbed gulfs of extra cosmic consciousness or obscure long Latin heredity were those half-articulate thunder-croaking drawn? Presently they began to gather renewed force and coherence as they grew in stark, utter, ultimate frenzy. No, it's not euphoria. I don't even remember what the word was. Oh, excuse me, my nose. Yeah. Help, Father, Yog. But that was all. The pallid group in the road, still reeling at the indisputably English syllables that had poured thickly and thunderously down from the frantic vacancy beside that shocking altar stone, were never to hear such syllables again. Instead, they jumped violently at the terrific, whatever, which seemed to rend the hills, the deafening, cataclysmic peal whose source be in inner earth or sky no hearer was ever able to place. A single lightning bolt shot from the purple zenith to the altar stone, and a great tidal wave of viewless force and indescribable stench swept down from the hill to all the countryside. Trees, grass, and the underbrush were whipped into a fury, and a frightened crowd in the mountain's base, weakened by the lethal fetor smell that seemed about to asphyxiate them all, were almost hurled off their feet. Dogs howled from the distance. Green grass and foliage wilted to a curious sickly yellow-gray, and over field and forest were scattered the bodies of dead whippoorwills. The stench left quickly, but the vegetation never came right again. To this day, there is something odd and unholy about the growths on and around that fearsome hill. Curtis Whately was only just regaining consciousness when the arc of men came slowly down the mountain in the beams of sunlight, once more brilliant and untainted. They were grave and quiet, and seemed shaken by memories and reflections even more terrible than those which had reduced the group of natives to the state of quivering. In reply to a jumble of questions, they only shook their heads and reaffirmed one vital fact. The thing has gone forever, Armitage said. It has been split up into what it was originally made of and can never exist again. It was an impossibility in a normal world. Only the least fraction was really matter in any sense we know. It was like its father, and most of it has gone back to him in some vague realm or dimension outside our material universe, some vague abyss out of which only the most accursed rites of human blasphemy could ever have called for a moment on the hills. There was a brief silence, and in that pause, the scattered senses of poor Curtis Whately began to knit back into the sort of continuity, so that he put his hands to his head with a moan. Memory seemed to pick itself up where it had left off, and the horror of sight had prostrated his bursten upon him again. Oh my God, that half face on top of it, that face with the red eyes and crinkly hair, and no chin like the Whateleys. It was an octopus, centipede, spider kind of thing, but they were half-shaped man's face on top of it, and it looked like Wizard Whately's, only it was just yards and yards across. He paused, exhausted, as a whole group of natives stared in bewilderment, not quite crystallized into fresh terror. Only old Zeb Whately, who wonderingly remembered ancient things, but who had been silent heretofore, spoke aloud. 15 years ago, he rambled, I heard old Whately say as how some day we'd hear a child of the divinities a calling its father's name on the top of Sentinel Hill. But Joe Osborne interrupted him to question the Arkham men anew. What was it anyhow? And however did young Wizard Whately call it out and the air come from him? Armitage chose his words very carefully. It was mostly a kind of force that doesn't belong in our part of space. A kind of force that acts and grows and shapes itself by other laws than those of our nature. We have no business calling in such things from outside, and only very wicked people and very wicked cults ever try to. There was some of it in Wilbur Whately himself, enough to make a devil, and a precocious monster of him, and to make his passing out a pretty terrible sight. I'm going to burn his accursed diary, and if you men are wise, you'll dynamite that altar stone up there, and pull down all the rings of standing stones on the other hills. Things like that brought down the beings those Whateleys were so fond of, the beings they were going to let intangibly to wipe out the human race and drag the earth off to some nameless place for some nameless purpose. But as to this thing we've just sent back, the Whateleys raised it for a terrible part in the doing that were going to come. It grew fast and big for the same reason that Wilbur grew fast and big. But it beat him because it had a greater share of the outsideness in it. You needn't ask how Wilbur called it out in the air. He didn't call it out. It was his twin brother? What the fuck? But it looked more like the father than he did. What? He had a twin brother? Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, it's let me find it. Oh, let me go back. Yeah, that's what it is. But oh my god. I don't even know what to say to that. And you know, they weren't specific either, cuz it's like when Zeb was talking, they're like someday we hear a child of Lavini's calling its father's name. So she had twins, but like, why did we only ever see Wilbur? Oh, but wait. Let's go back to the beginning. I mean, when a traveler in north central Massachusetts takes a wrong fork in the juncture. I mean, maybe that was the twin? I'm so confused about why there was a twin. Or how the hell there was a twin. That was interesting. So that finishes the Dunwich horror. And so next month we will read either Alice in Wonderland. I need to finish this book, but it's going to take us several more months to finish the book. Yeah, so basically 2 Cthulhu babies, yeah. And well, because it also says that it was his twin brother, but it looked more like the father than he did. And I'm guessing Eyeball Man over here was not the father, but I'm guessing Cthulhu, the god, the main god, was the father. So, like... wait. Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, wait. So there was 2 Cthulhu babies. We know Wilbur. But the giant monster that's been terrorizing the towns, that was the twin. I bet you that was the twin. And because he was invisible and was eating everything, that he called upon the father. And that's who he was doing, and he was calling upon Cthulhu to unlock Cthulhu from his home. Because it says it looked more like the father than he did. And this would explain this monster looking like Cthulhu because he had wiggly noodly arms and all of this stuff. So, I mean, I'm just saying. I don't think we have a baby Jesus situation here. I think we have... I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. But it makes sense in my head. It's like, okay, so... Lavinia, she gave birth to 2. Wilbur and then giant demon Cthulhu baby. And Wilbur grew up quickly, as did giant Cthulhu baby. And giant Cthulhu baby, that's what they were keeping in the house, I'm sure, for so long, until Dunwich Horror Night, where it started stamping along and the house blew up because it escaped. And so it went around terrorizing the town while he was gone. He was basically taking care of his twin giant demon Cthulhu baby brother. Wow. Okay. So we're done with that book. Okay. Cthulhu giving a baby to a chosen woman sounds pretty Jesus-y. To me, it sounds more, Well, that's the thing. It's not Jesus-y because Jesus blessed Mary with, or no, I'm sorry. God blessed Mary with baby Jesus. But this, because Cthulhu man, the god Cthulhu physically had sex with Lavinia. So basically, it's more or less Zeus. We're gonna go with Zeus. Zeus was a promiscuous god, Greek god. So, look up him and his, ventures. But to me, it seems it's more like a Zeus kind of thing, where he had sex, got her pregnant. She had twins and demon Cthulhu babies. Okay, yeah. Just want to make sure, because some people weren't really into Greek mythology while in school, and they were more into Roman mythology, or they just didn't care at all. So, personally, we like Greek mythology better, so. Alright, but that ends today's stream. He's everyone's baby dad. He's everyone's baby dad. Zeus was bad. Okay, so next time we do The Whispers in Darkness. I mean, some of these stories I'm really glad that we're reading, because I would never necessarily read these at any other time. But we got Call of Cthulhu game for free, and so I was like, let's read Call of Cthulhu and then play the game. And there was a lot of things in it that they did really well. They actually the devs actually sat down and read the book. I'm still pissed about one achievement with that game, but it's good. We're moving on. 100% it. We can move on. Yeah, there you go. Cthulhu, rely. I can't say anything else. I can hear it, but I can't say it. But anyways, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'm going to go eat my Taco Bell because I'm sure it's cold by now. And I will be back in about 2.5 hours with some DVD if you guys want to come hang out with that, because that would be great. Relay is a place. Yeah, that's not so surprising. So we're slowly getting through the book. Slowly but surely. So, like I said, we'll be back with more DVD tonight. I don't know if I'll cancel tomorrow. I don't want to cancel, so depending on how I feel in the morning, stream may just be a little later tomorrow. I might just start at like 1 or 2 and then go till about 6 maybe. We'll see. We'll just see how I am tomorrow, because I've been talking so much today, and I'll continue talking in about 2.5 hours. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Let me see. Oh, let me say, I hope you have a great break. Looking forward to see. Yeah, DVD is really fun. Me and Happy always have a good time. I was going to see if we had anybody to raid right now. But I really don't have anybody to raid at the moment, so I'm just gonna let you guys go free. So anyways, I will see you guys in a couple of hours. Y'all come back now here, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for the lurks, the chats, the bits, the hosts, the raids, the follows, subs, resubs, gift subs, all the good stuff. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys just hanging out and listening to me read horror stories. So it's great. It's fun. I enjoy it. He's a creepy, very creepy man. Very creepy man. But, I'll see you guys in the next stream. Y'all come back now here, and y'all have a good one. Ba-doop!